Chapter 779. Dongbua Shui-ing, Empress Qianhe, Monarch Green, Primal Master, Temporal Island Lord. And the other rulers were also looking at the base of the Ancestor Mother religion. That simple and beautiful spherical fortress. I do want to see what other methods this Ancestor Mother religion has. Now that it has been sealed by the 12 primal pillars, what else can they do? If they have any formidable techniques, they would not have allowed us to construct the primal pillars successfully. The power of the 12 primal pillars is at the Void God level. It is also because Bloodblade has touched the boundary of the Void God realm and has relied on the refinement technique of the Myriad Catalog that he succeeded. I do not believe that they can break it. The rulers were watching from afar. They were chatting with one another. They were waiting for the reaction of the Ancestor Mother religion. Time passed by second. Dongbua Shui-ing and the others were very patient. Even if the Ancestor Mother religion wanted to retaliate, they would have to discuss it internally, and it would definitely take some time. Amen. Bloodblade was slightly startled. Dongbua Shui-ing and the others saw it too. Hong Long Long. A hole suddenly opened in one of the spherical fortress. A muscular green-brown skinned giant was currently standing by the hole. He was barefooted, and there were only a few pieces of rags wrapped around his body. His eyes were incomparably calm like an endless sea, but because the void shackles had sealed the entire fortress, this fanged hunk could not leave the hole. He said, "Bloodblade, this is merely an incarnation of mine. I do not have any weapons or storage treasures. Even my robe is condensed from energy. Let me out." His voice could not be heard by Dongbua Shui-ing and the other rulers. Only Bloodblade, who controlled the 12 primal pillars array, could hear it. Wang, a ripple immediately entered the body of the fanged hunk. Indeed, this was merely an incarnation. Even his robe was condensed from energy. He did not have any other items. Come out. With a thought, Bloodblade enveloped the incarnation of the fanged hunk, teleporting him out of the fortress. Dongbua Shui-ing and the others couldn't hear the voice of the huge fanged hunk, but they could see the huge fanged hunk being teleported out. After teleporting out, they were able to scan the huge fanged hunk from afar. Because it was just an incarnation, Dongbua Shui-ing and the others were able to scan the huge fanged hunk with ease. It's just an incarnation. No items, no threats. The sovereigns all stared at the fanged man. Given their level of power, they could clearly see the fanged man's fur, even though they were extremely far away. At this moment, only Bloodblade personally came to the front of the fanged man. Dongbua Shui-ing and the others were still guarding the primal pillar and watching from afar. Guarding the primal dawn pillar was very important. It could not be neglected. The rulers are all here? The fanged sect leader swept his eyes over the surroundings. Even though he couldn't see them, he could guess. He laughed as he spoke. "Speak. What's the matter?" Bloodblade appeared in front of him, calmly speaking. The fanged sect leader looked at the white-robed Bloodblade clone in front of him and sighed. "Bloodblade, you really are careful. No matter what, you are always so cautious. Even now we have already won, but the other sovereigns are still guarding the primal dawn pillar. In addition, their true bodies are probably still on the island in the center of the lake." "Yes." Bloodblade nodded. "No matter how great the temptation is, I won't gamble." The huge fanged hunk sighed. "Before this, we set up all sorts of traps. Although we tried to kill you all time and time again, it was all useless." Bloodblade said, "Over the past 100,000 years, we have indeed faced temptation time and time again. However, I am very clear that if we were to attack with our true bodies, we might be able to win. However, we are risking the death of both our true bodies and our clones. If we don't gamble, our true bodies will always be safe. We can cultivate an endless stream of clones to continue fighting. If this continues, even if we use up all of your god crystals, we will still be able to win in the end. Since we will win in the end, why take the risk?" Bloodblade said coldly. "You are very calm." The fanged hierophant sighed. "However, to many experts, knowing is one thing, and acting is another. With victory so close at hand, it is normal to be hot-headed. What a pity, what a pity. Is that all you have to say?" Bloodblade continued. Dongbua Shui-ing and the other sovereigns watched and listened from afar. The fanged Hierophant shook his head. I quite admire you. You are extremely skilled in array formations. You relied on the Void Twin Extreme Array to force us out, then used this Primal Dawn Pillar Array to trap us. It's all because of you. Furthermore, you discovered long ago that the Blood Ruler was a traitor. You pretended not to know and beat us at our own game, causing us to suffer greatly. I still don't understand. How did you discover that the Blood Ruler was a traitor? That is a secret, Bloodblade said coldly. Although he himself had some suspicions, the information that Dongbo Shuiying had given him back then allowed Bloodblade to almost confirm that the Blood Ruler, Nile, was the traitor. You are really careful. Even now, you are still keeping it a secret. The fanged Hierophant's expression was slightly bleak. His gaze was somewhat bleak. My race has been reproducing in our hometown until now. We are extremely powerful. It's just that the universe will eventually age and collapse. And this universe passageway with you is our only chance. We can only fight. If we have an endless supply of heaven and earth energy, and a large amount of resources, this battle will most likely be our victory. Bloodblade laughed coldly. Not treasures, not external help. In a true battle of strength, you are not our match. The fanged Hierophant was stunned. Right. One had to admit that with the help of the doppelganger technique, the sovereigns of the cultivator cosmos had 3 bodies. This made up for their weakness in numbers. In a true battle, the cultivators were indeed stronger. There is no meaning in saying all this. Our protectors are almost all dead. Many of our Hierophant also died. After 100,000 years of fighting, we still lost. The fanged Hierophant said, I came here today because I hope that your cultivator cosmos can give us a path of survival. A path of survival? Bloodblade laughed coldly. Why should we give you a path of survival? We will imprison you until the end of the cosmos epoch. All of you will die. Even if you follow the cosmos passage back to that collapsing cosmos, you will still die. You are dead. We are dead. The fanged Hierophant said. Firstly, we still have the strength to fight. Although we do not have any hope of victory, we will still make you pay a huge price. Secondly, if you give us a path of survival, we can give you many things. For example, treasures. Thirdly, we are only doing this for survival. Bloodblade turned silent. He was secretly discussing with the other rulers. Dongbo Shuiying and the rest were also rapidly discussing. Are you speaking the truth? Can they still fight? They are already trapped by us, yet they want us to pay the price? Are they trying to scare us? Or do they really have some tricks up their sleeves? They want to occupy our cosmos, yet they want to beg for mercy? Let me ask him again. Bloodblade looked at the fanged Hierophant in front of him. You want a path of survival? What path of survival? There are 2 methods. The huge fanged hunk said. The first path of survival is that you have a good relationship with that Gu Qianluo. He has the primal chaos flying ship. He can let us enter the ship and bring us away. The second path of survival is to continue imprisoning us. Wait until your cultivator cosmos produces another void god. Before the end of the cosmos epoch, your void god will bring the transcended clansmen away. You can just bring us along when you leave. This is our final hope. We have no hope of a war. We only seek for survival. The huge fanged hunk looked at Bloodblade. The ancestor mother religion had reached a dead end. They had no other choice. They could only lower their heads and beg for survival. The right to decide was on the side of the cultivators. The feeling of controlling the fate of the other party felt good. Dongbo Shuiying, Empress Qianhe, Pang Yi, Bloodblade, and the others might be contemplating, but their moods were extremely good. Unless we won just like that. The war is ending? Dongbo Shuiying felt that everything had happened too quickly. He had just woken up from his sleep, and the war had ended? Naturally, only Dongbo Shuiying felt that everything had happened too quickly. The other rulers felt entirely different. Bloodblade, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, Purgatory Ruler, Pang Yi, Monarch Green, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, Empress Qianhe, and the others felt their hearts fluctuating. They were too tired over the past 100,000 years. They did not dare to relax at all. They had schemed and risked their lives time and time again. They had died too many times. They were even close to victory time after time. only to discover that it was a trap. Their hearts were tired, but they had to continue fighting. Finally, Dongbo Shuiying brought them luck. The war was finally ending. At this moment they felt relaxed. Even though they were still maintaining a strand of vigilance, their hearts were brimming with joy. Fellow rulers, what do you think? Should we let them live? Bloodblade asked the other rulers. Chapter 780. The 10 rulers who stood at the apex of the cultivator cosmos were discussing. Actually, Dongbo Shuiying and the rest had the thought of exterminating all the religious leaders from the ancestor mother religion. After all, the 100,000 years of war had affected many regions. Many regions in the deity world and dark abyss had been exterminated, and the number of casualties was uncountable. Dongbo Shuiying and the rest were filled with killing intent. But the clash between two cosmos races could not be carried out recklessly. Firstly, the ancestor mother religion might have the means to force the cultivators to pay a painful price. Secondly, the treasures of the ancestor mother religion were extremely enticing. Just by using them to comprehend and ponder over them, it would be of great help to one's cultivation. All right, then we'll give them a path of survival. We can give them a path of survival, but we must imprison them until the cosmos epic ends. By then, our void gods will bring them away. Right, we must absolutely not let them enter Gu Qianluo's primal chaos flying ship. That Gu Qianluo is extremely wicked. Letting him bring the ancestor mother religion away. I'm afraid there might be some variables. The rulers came to a decision after a simple discussion. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered. Since things had reached this stage, then they would give the enemy a strand of hope. Without hope, the enemy would only go crazy. And with hope, the enemy would obediently wait for the day they would be rescued. If the cultivators were wicked enough, they could completely disregard their promise and not save them. But they would definitely not get those treasures from the ancestor mother religion. I'll go talk to them, Bloodblade said. It is already benevolent of us to give them a chance of survival, since the war has reached this stage. But everyone still has to remain vigilant. The ancestor mother religion isn't worth trusting. Understood. Rest assured. We will always have avatars guarding the primal pillars. In the starry sky, every primal pillar had a ruler guarding it. And in another starry sky, within the primal chaos flying ship, the huge sculpture Gu Qianluo, that was emitting a wicked and cold aura, was currently smiling. He was looking down at a green-skinned teenager with horns. This green-skinned teenager's eyes were filled with pain and unwillingness. His body was slightly trembling. Isn't it too overboard? The green-skinned teenager said with a low voice. TSK, too much? Not at all. Do you think the cultivators will let you live? They said that they would bring all of you with them when the cosmos epic is about to end. But when the time comes, they won't bring all of you with them. They'll let all of you perish along with this epic. What can you do? Gu Qianluo laughed. His laughter was filled with disdain. Placing your hopes on the benevolence of the cultivators. That's too foolish. During the previous 100,000 years of war, you guys had intentionally caused some of the disturbances from the war, killing countless of their clansmen and living beings. The hatred these rulers have for you guys is extremely deep. I'll become your servant from now on. I can promise you that. The green-skinned teenager lowered his voice. But the treasures of my ancestor mother religion must be passed to you in 2 batches. When you break the primal pillar to save us, you must hand over the first batch. We will construct the ancestor mother altar and hand over the last batch after we win. This is our bottom line. Either you agree, or our ancestor mother religion would rather die. The green-skinned teenager looked up at the enormous sculpture in front of him. Not long after the war erupted, Gu Qianluo had taken the initiative to lure a ruler from the ancestor mother religion into his primal chaos flying ship. In the past, rulers were forbidden from entering because he was in a deep slumber. Now that he was awake, especially within the primal chaos flying ship, he did not care about a ruler. As the war progressed, the ancestor mother religion's confidence became weaker and weaker. Finally, they lowered their heads. We have to split it into 2 batches. Gu Qianluo muttered to himself. He was delighted in his heart. Even the most arrogant experts had to obediently lower their heads. Who would have thought that this ancestor mother religion has so many treasures? There are some that even void gods are jealous of. Gu Qianluo was slightly startled. He originally did not treat the ancestor mother religion as anything. But when the war began, he had been spying on them in the dark, and his eyes immediately turned red. He discovered that some of the treasures of the ancestor mother religion were at the void god level. Some were even from other systems. They could have been plundered by the experts of the ancestor mother religion for their juniors. Currently, the strongest expert of the ancestor mother religion was equivalent to a ruler. Furthermore, he was slightly clumsy when it came to controlling the treasures. Thus, many of the formidable treasures could not be unleashed by much. If they were to land in my hands, I would have really profited. Gu Qianluo's eyes turned red. He felt an itch in his heart. Actually, this was because the cosmos of the ancestor mother religion had collapsed, causing many treasures hidden within the historical remains to be leaked out. That was why the religious leaders of the ancestor mother religion had so many treasures. But if they were not strong enough, these treasures would be a joke in their hands. Instead, it was Bloodblade, who had one foot in the void god realm. He had just obtained the myriad catalog, yet he was able to refine many arrays immediately. They were much more useful than many of the treasures of the ancestor mother religion. But in reality, many of the treasures of the ancestor mother religion were above the primal pillars. But the stronger the treasure, the higher the threshold to control it. Humph. For the sake of survival, I have to lower my head. Gu Qianluo thought. For the sake of so many treasures, it is worth it for me to act. He was the seventh sacred son under the ancestor bone throne, and his vision was much higher. By relying on the primal chaos flying ship, he could move unhindered across the primal chaos void and fight against void gods. In terms of survival and escaping, the primal chaos flying ship was much stronger. Even if he was heavily injured, he was still confident of dealing against a group of rulers with the help of the primal chaos flying ship. The green-skinned teenager became nervous after saying that. He was worried that Gu Qianluo would not agree to it. But this was the bottom line of the ancestor mother religion, because they were afraid that Gu Qianluo would leave after obtaining all the treasures without caring about their lives. Thus, they had to split the treasures into 2 batches. Furthermore, the most important treasures would be kept in the second batch. They had to help them construct the ancestor mother altar and win the war before they could give the second batch to Gu Qianluo. All right. Religious leader Sang Dan, you should swear the oath. The moment Gu Qianluo finished speaking, the space in front of the green-skinned teenager suddenly fluctuated. A piece of leaf appeared in front of religious leader Sang Dan. On the leaf, there was a faint illusory figure of a short and small creature. On it, there were many unknown words. These words transmitted information, allowing the green-skinned teenager to understand it completely. The green-skinned teenager was one of the younger religious leaders of the ancestor mother religion. He had entered the primal chaos flying ship during the early stages of the war. He extended his hand and lightly tapped on the leaf. A strand of soul aura descended on this leaf. It was immediately taken away by the leaf. And at this moment, the enormous sculpture of Gu Qianluo also sent a strand of soul aura onto the leaf. Wang. On the leaf, the illusory figure of the short and small creature looked up. He glanced at Gu Qianluo before looking at the green-skinned teenager by the side. His mouth moved, but his voice directly resounded in the minds of Gu Qianluo and the green-skinned teenager. The oath is established. Those who violate it die. The green-skinned teenager could feel an unseen law. That was a very unique law of the oath. The moment he violated it, he would undoubtedly die. The power of the law was extremely strong. At least, he could feel that even if he was 100 or 1,000 times stronger, he would not be able to shake the law of the oath. Master, religious leader Sang Dan respectfully greeted. Very good. Gu Qianluo chuckled as he looked at his new servant. When I was roaming the primal chaos void, I had once chanced upon a set of arrays. This set of arrays is relatively formidable, and it should be easy for me to use it to protect your altar. We have a total of 6 altars. Religious leader Sang Dan said. The 6 altars will be spread across 6 different parts of the cosmos. Only then will the altar be formed. This set of arrays has a total of 9. Lending 6 of them to you temporarily is a small matter. Gu Qianluo was indifferent. He felt disdain towards a battle at this level. When he was roaming the primal chaos void, most of his enemies were void gods. Being the sacred son doted on by ancestor Bone, his personal strength was top-notch even amongst rulers. Adding on various external materials, he could naturally fight against void gods at his peak. Many thanks, Master. Religious leader Sang Dan responded with joy. In a while, I'll destroy that primal time array and save you all. You all should immediately start constructing the altars. I'll help you defend them. The moment the 6 altars form the final Ancestor Mother altar, it will change the entire cosmos. Without the endless supply of world energy, they will be rejected by the cosmos. They will definitely lose, Gu Qianluo casually said. And at this moment, in the starry sky outside the territory of the Ancestor Mother religion, the incarnation of the fanged religious leader was currently having a final discussion with Bloodblade. We no longer have any path of retreat. We can only hope that you cultivators will abide by your promise. The fanged religious leader lowered his head and said. Bloodblade nodded. I also hope that you all will obediently stay in your territory and not have any schemes. If you all were to deceive us, we'll definitely not give you all another chance. You can be rest assured. The fanged religious leader chuckled. Chapter 781. On the Primal Pillar. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang sat at the edge of the pillar. He looked down at the vast starry sky and the many huge shackles. He chuckled before drinking from a flask of wine. Junior disciple brother Dongbua, why are you drinking alone? Come, let me have a taste. A voice reverberated in his ears. Dongbua Shuang turned over. He saw his senior disciple brother Monarch Green, asking for wine from another primal pillar through the void. It's not a good wine, but I like it quite a bit. Here. Dongbua Shuang casually took another flask of wine and threw it over. Xiao. He directly penetrated through the void, traveling a great distance before appearing in front of Monarch Green. Oh! Monarch Green's eyes brightened. He was inwardly shocked at the formidable control his junior disciple brother had over the void. One had to know that he, Monarch Green, specialized in 3 Daos, and one of them was the Dao of Void. After receiving the flask, Monarch Green drank a mouthful. Not bad. The taste might be light, but it leaves a lingering aftertaste. This is a good wine. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. He then casually chatted with his senior disciple brother Monarch Green while drinking. The days of guarding the primal pillars were indeed lonely. Of the 12 primal pillars, Dongbua Shuang was guarding 2. As for Empress Qianhe, she had long left. She directly said, I can't help much here. Dongbua Shuang, I'll have to trouble you here. She then left with a smile. Hoo-hoo, the wind caused by the array stirred the surroundings. Dongbua Shuang's hair was blown upwards. He looked up, enjoying the tranquility. Suddenly, in this tranquility, a flying ship that was only 1,000 miles long appeared out of thin air. It appeared without a sound and looked very ordinary. It was much smaller than the wood mustache warship of the Ancestor Mother religion, 500 kilometers long. It was pitifully small in the starry sky. Any planet was much bigger than it. But on the nearest primal pillar, Primal Master's expression changed. Primal Chaos Flying Ship. Bloodblade not good. The Chaos Flying Ship has suddenly appeared. Primal Master immediately sent a voice transmission. At the same time he asked, Gu Qianluo, what are you doing here? I'm just here to play. An evil voice rang out from the Primal Chaos Flying Ship. Immediately after, a purple arc of light shot out from the Primal Chaos Flying Ship. Almost instantly, it passed through the obstruction of space and bombarded the primal pillar. Boom! This primal pillar was originally incomparably tough and hard to be shaken. However, at this moment, under the impact of this unassuming purple arc of light, it was directly sent tumbling. The formless shockwave swept across Primal Master's body. Primal Master's expression suddenly changed. Following which, his body turned into powder and dissipated into nothingness. Just one strike. That religious leader Sang Dan had sworn an oath with him and was his servant. But he could not be at ease with the other religious leaders. Who? The wooden mustache-wore ship rapidly tore through the void and left. The primal chaos flying ship followed closely behind. Chase, Bloodblade, Dongbo Shui-ing, Monarch Green, and the rest relied on their senses of the void to chase after the ripples. It was especially so for Dongbo Shui-ing, who had an extremely acute control over the void. Currently, he could practically sense any space in the entire cosmos. There were only a few places that he could not sense. For instance, the core region of the Lake Heart Island historical remain. For instance, the starting ground was not something he could sense directly. With Gu Qianluo helping us, let's hurry up and construct the Ancestor Mother altar. The religious leaders from the Ancestor Mother religion rapidly acted. After piercing through the void and arriving at one of the 6 locations in the cosmos, the wooden mustache-wore ship stopped. The religious leaders immediately flew out. With a wave of their hands, a gray altar appeared. A thin old man began chanting in front of the altar, activating it. And the other 2 religious leaders took out one of the 6 arrays given to them by Gu Qianluo and began constructing it. The primal chaos flying ship also appeared above them, protecting them. You fools, it's just constructing an array. Hurry up. Gu Qianluo urged. So. Many figures appeared in the distant void. They were none other than Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Pang Yi, Purgatory Ruler, Dongbo Shui-ing, Primal Master and others. Following the activation of that gray altar, an unseen energy began transmitting outwards. It had almost instantaneously spread across the entire cosmos. Many gray altar illusions began appearing in many locations across the cosmos. This unseen energy began affecting the entire cosmos. Hong. The cosmos was trembling, and the world energy began surging and becoming chaotic. The Ancestor Mother altar is formed by 6 altars. Dongbo Shui-ing explained. This is the first altar. The moment the altar is formed, its power will spread across the entire cosmos. It will begin transforming the entire cosmos. The expressions of Bloodblade and the others turned ashen. They had also obtained the cultivation system of the Ancestor Mother religion sent over by Dongbo Shui-ing previously, and had gained some understanding of it. Move, Bloodblade ordered. At this moment, there was no need to say anything. Everything Gu Qianluo did indicated that he was completely standing on the side of the Ancestor Mother religion. Chapter 782. The black bird on the shoulder of the bloodshed god emperor suddenly became bigger, covering the entire sky. It was 1,000,000 times bigger than a planet. The figure of the bloodshed god emperor turned illusory, and 2 bodies appeared. These 2 bloodshed god emperors displayed the arrays at the same time. 2 huge arrays appeared on the wings of the black bird 5th Uncle Master. One wing was filled with flames, and the other was filled with frost. Blackbird 5th Uncle Master flapped his wings, causing the energy of ice and fire to fuse together, releasing a horrifying destructive force that swept forward. Everywhere it passed, everything was destroyed. The combination of the 2 great avatars, the arrays and the black bird left others speechless. By the side, Dongbo Shui-ing felt startled. This was the first time he saw his teacher Bloodblade unleashing his full strength. Even though he had a true body and avatar, he was fighting for himself. On the side of his teacher Bloodblade, the 2 avatars were perfectly controlling the 2 arrays, allowing his power to explosively increase. Such a powerful ruler. Within the primal chaos flying ship, the enormous sculpture Gu Qianluo watched this scene from afar. His expression slightly changed. If not for the primal chaos flying ship, even if I rely on other treasures, I might not be his opponent at my peak. This cosmos actually gave birth to such a terrifying ruler. This combat power should be sufficient for him to withstand a few moves from a void god. Gu Qianluo could not help but feel jealous. With his eyesight, he could see that Black Bird was a slightly unique life form, and was similarly at the ruler realm. With just a follower, he could unleash such power. If faced with Ancestor Bone, this blood blade was more qualified than him, Gu Qianluo, to become a sacred son. Naturally, It was because his position was in imminent danger that he decided to take the risk. Even though he was jealous, Gu Qianluo remained disdainful. In the end, he still hasn't walked out of this cosmos. Once I get the treasures from the ancestor mother religion, I'll conveniently eliminate him. Bloodblade was able to unleash an extremely powerful attack by himself, while Primal Master, Empress Qianhe, Monarch Green, Pang Yi, and the others were controlling a huge formation at the same time. Primal Master was in charge, and every time the formation attacked, a pitch-black crack would appear. It had a frightening attack power. Other than that, the Purgatory Ruler, Dongbui Shuiying, the Abyss Primogenitor, and the Temporal Island Lord fought their own battles. This was because there were too few suitable and powerful treasures for cultivators. Every time the Blackbird Fifth Master Uncle flapped his wings, a terrifying destructive power would sweep out. Primal Master and the other 4 rulers controlled the array at the same time. They specialized in arrays too. Every strike they made would cause a crack to appear. They were trying to tear the ancestor mother religion apart. Even though Dongbui Shuiying, Purgatory Ruler, and the others were attacking, their offensive power was much weaker. Ultimately, they were still within the ruler realm, and could not threaten the ancestor mother religion at all. The ancestor mother religion had a total of 3 layers of defense. The first layer was the wooden mustache warship located beneath the sacrificial pagoda. Large amounts of roots flew out and surrounded the sacrificial pagoda, protecting it. The second layer was the primal chaos flying ship, located above the sacrificial pagoda. The third layer was the array that Gu Qianluo had previously given to the ancestor mother religion. Hua hua hua, the attacks of the cultivators were violent and ferocious, yet they could barely break through the obstruction of the large amount of roots. The primal chaos flying ship was able to withstand the remnant power of the attacks. I've overestimated them, and even lent 6 arrays to the ancestor mother religion. Within the primal chaos flying ship, Gu Qianluo could not help but shake his head with a sneer. That's right, the first 2 layers of protection were able to defend against the attacks. The arrays did not suffer from any impact at all. Quickly activate it. The religious leaders were feeling anxious, and that thin old man was muttering to himself in front of the sacrificial pagoda. It was pointless to be anxious. The activation process had to be done step by step. As the thin old man gradually activated it, the energy of the sacrificial pagoda became more turbulent. It seemed to be able to sense a majestic existence far away. Ancestor Mother. A smile appeared on the skinny old man's face. He was like a baby in his mother's embrace. He could sense that boundless power. In front of this power, even though he was a sect master, he was like an ant in the starry sky. The sacrificial pagoda suddenly erupted with an even greater energy. It began resonating with the other grayish sacrificial pagoda illusions. This resonance gradually formed a law and stabilized. And the surging of the world energy in the entire cultivator cosmos became more intense. Several transcendents in the deity world, material realm, and dark abyss were startled to discover that they could no longer absorb the world energy because it was too violent. It's almost done. The other religious leaders in the wooden mustache warship revealed a joyous look as they saw this. What should we do? What if we can't break it? Monarch Green revealed a strand of anxiety. That sacrificial pagoda is protected by that warship and the primal chaos flying ship. There is even a strange array protecting it. We can't even break through the protection of the primal chaos flying ship. Primal Master's expression was ugly. For instance, the creator of the Void Walker was the one who created the complete Walker's hidden secret. He was both terrifying and powerful. Amongst the final realm existences, Ancestor Mother was an extremely tyrannical existence. This cultivation system only worshipped the Ancestor Mother and rejected all other systems. Everything revolved around the Ancestor Mother. The Ancestor Mother altar could even borrow the energy bestowed by the Ancestor Mother to change a cosmos, allowing other cosmoses to become the Ancestor Mother's cosmos. According to logic, Such existences would be rejected by the other final realm existences. Nevertheless, the ancestor mother's status was stable, and that was because he was too powerful. I still have to use the black gourd. Dongbo Shuang flipped his hand and took out the black gourd. Dongbo Shuang, are you really going to use it? The treasure spirit transmitted. Let me remind you once again. You are currently a ruler. Using the second level of the black gourd's energy will harm the entire cosmos. If you go too crazy, you might even destroy the entire cosmos. I understand. I'll carefully control the range, Dongbo Shuang said. At the Paragon realm, the energy released by the black gourd was sufficient to force all rulers to retreat. And at the ruler realm, the energy released by the black gourd was no longer just ripples. Instead, it was more terrifying. It was sufficient to force even void gods at the origin birth realm to retreat. Ordinary void gods could not resist against it. One could see how terrifying and reckless this energy was. Only with such a powerful energy could it protect the void walkers at the ruler realm. Black gourd? Gu Qianluo and the religious leaders who were constantly paying attention to the cultivators within the primal chaos flying ship felt slightly disdainful. They had seen the power of the black gourd before. That black ripple was violent and reckless, and it had barely reached the void god level. It could not even be compared to the attack of the blood blade, and they still wanted to participate? Pa Dongbo Shuang unplugged the cork of the black gourd. Chapter 783. Sensing that mysterious and unfathomable void array within the black gourd, Dongbo Shuang began controlling it. After reaching the ruler realm, his soul had become stronger, allowing him to control the fireball within the black gourd that was comparable to the sun star. But Dongbo Shuang was still very careful, because he was clear that if he were to use this energy to destroy the cosmos, it would bring the end of this cosmos epoch. Just like the mortal worlds within the material realm, if they were to be destroyed, they would be reborn even faster. The duration of every cosmos epoch was not exactly the same. The number of life forms reproduced, the number of rulers and void gods born, the absorption of world energy, the direct destruction of the cosmos, all sorts of factors determined the length of a cosmos epoch. The second level of the black gourd had the power to force ordinary void gods to retreat. Naturally, it could harm the cosmos. If Dongbo Shuang became a void god and controlled the third level of the black gourd, he would only need a single move to end a cosmos epoch. Actually, the power of a void god was sufficient to harm the cosmos. Thus, the three great emperors from the Devil Mountain cosmos would only spar within the primogenitive Devil Mountain. They would not act in other regions. Be careful and control the area, Dongbo Shuang thought. Once we get rid of this altar, we will immediately stop. At this moment, the ancestor mother religion and Gu Qianluo were more concerned about Bloodblade and the others. They did not place Dongbo Shuang in their eyes at all. In their opinion, that black gourd was quite useful against 2 or 3 rulers. But this was a war between races. The ancestor mother religion had used all their resources, and even Gu Qianluo was helping them. In this level of battle, the black gourd was not worth mentioning. Much less them, even Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Primal Master and the others were shaking their heads inwardly. The power of the black gourd might be of some help to us, but it can't change the situation. But Dongbo Shuang was extremely careful. His soul could feel an incomparable pressure. This power had far surpassed his level. Fortunately, the black gourd had recognized him as its master. Otherwise, this terrifying power would be sufficient to injure his soul. Be destroyed, ancestor mother religion. Dongbo Shuang's eyes were filled with a strand of sharpness. Hoop dazzling. It was incomparably dazzling. This dazzling light caused both sides to unconsciously look over. Gu Qianluo, the religious leaders from the ancestor mother religion, and the rulers from the cultivator side were all looking at that black gourd in a daze. A beam of dazzling golden light flew out from the mouth of the black gourd. It flew out at high speed towards the first altar. The golden light that flew out at high speed seemed to be a kind of liquid. It was the most dazzling thing in the entire starry sky, even more dazzling than the sun. At the same time, the moment it appeared, the surrounding temperature skyrocketed, causing the void to distort and shatter. If sovereigns dared to touch this golden light, they would be instantly turned into ashes. Chi! The large number of roots of the wooden mustache warship that were protecting the altar collapsed under the impact of the surging golden liquid. They became soft and didn't have the slightest bit of power left. The primal chaos flying ship's control over the space below the altar was also broken in an instant. It couldn't even obstruct the slightest bit. Block it! The array protecting the altar was being controlled by the two religious leaders from the ancestor mother religion. They were all anxious since this defensive array was their final defense. Chi chi chi. The surging golden liquid light surged over like a surging wave. Its speed was extremely fast, and its power was extraordinary. That defensive array emitted a dazzling light, and the veined patterns on the violet array started trembling. Countless veined patterns started shattering, and in just half a breath of time, the defensive array had been completely shattered. The golden light had engulfed the three religious leaders, the two who controlled the array, and the one who activated the altar. The first altar had also been engulfed by the golden light. The three religious leaders instantly turned into ashes. The wooden mustache warship and the primal chaos flying ship did not dare to get close. The surging and dazzling golden light engulfed the altar. It did not continue spreading outwards, and was clearly restrained. Golden sun flames? This is the golden sun flames? Bloodblade, Primal Master, and the others were all shocked. They were all too familiar with it. The sun star was separated into 6 levels, and the 5th level, the sun abyss, contained this type of liquid flame, the golden sun flames. And deep within the sun abyss, there was the sun star core. That was the true core of the sun star. The power of the liquid golden sun flames within the sun abyss was too great. Rulers did not dare to get close to it, because they would feel death approaching them. Many predecessors from the epics like Lake Heart Island Sword Master and Ancestor Devil had left behind records that rulers who dared to touch the golden sun flames would instantly turn into ashes. Even void gods could not last too long under the influence of the golden sun flames. Dongbo Shuiying held onto the black gourd. The density of the golden flame at the mouth of the gourd was the highest. It was being compressed and distorted. After charging out, it engulfed the distant altar. Split. Dongbo Shuiying sent out a thought. These dazzling golden flames formed a path. Dongbo Shuiying strolled through the void. Everywhere he passed, the golden flames would split apart. They obediently revolved around Dongbo Shuiying. Following along the path formed by the golden flames, Dongbo Shuiying walked towards the direction of the first altar. He extended his right hand, causing his palm to expand before grabbing onto the altar and pulling it out. Being a void walker, Shuiying directly tore apart the connection between the altar and the other grayish altar illusory figures within the cosmos before keeping it into his storage treasure. Regarding this, the ancestor mother religion and Gu Qianluo could only watch. They could not stop Dongbo Shuiying at all. We're finished. The religious leaders within the wooden mustache warship were all stunned. We're finished. The first altar has been snatched away. How can we refine a new one within a short period? Furthermore, there are 6 altars. How can we let the defenses of 6 altars withstand this terrifying golden flame? These religious leaders were completely stunned. The power of the black gourd had them in despair. The cultivators were incomparably shocked. A ruler could actually control the power of the golden sun flames. And on such a large scale? Who could resist against it? This made Monarch Green, Primal Master, and the others happy and envious. At this moment, they understood that the black gourd was not as simple as they thought it to be. Instead, it was an unfathomable treasure. At the very least, it was much stronger than the treasures possessed by any ruler. No wonder he rose so quickly. His luck is too good. Temporal Island Lord thought. Even though they were from the same race, he could not help but feel envious. A brat who could not even join the Temporal Temple in the past had now made him, the Temporal Island Lord, jealous. But if not for Dongbo Shuiying's rapid and dazzling progress in the path of cultivation, he would not have passed the trials of the Void Walkers. Like Temporal Island Lord, he would not have passed the trials of the Void Walkers due to his poor comprehension ability and temperament. And within the primal chaos flying ship, the enormous sculpture Gu Qianluo was feeling entirely different. He had a terrified expression on his face. A ruler who has yet to leave the cosmos actually has such a treasure? When he was a paragon, this black gourd could release a ripple attack that could resist against rulers. But now, it could release this terrifying flame that could resist against ordinary void gods. Different levels correspond to different powers. Furthermore, there doesn't seem to be any backlash. Such a treasure is definitely a Tao protector treasure, that of formidable existence intentionally refined for the sake of a junior. Gu Qianluo's horizons were broad. He was after all the seventh sacred son, and only the first 3 sacred sons, under the ancestor bone throne, had obtained a protective treasure. He was not qualified to get it. I must get it. This protective treasure is much more valuable than the treasures of the ancestor mother religion. It should be even more valuable than this primal chaos flying ship of mine. Even though this protective treasure would only have an inheritor, and others could not use it. But, as long as I bring it back and ask my teacher, he would still be willing to refine it. Gu Qianluo felt his heart stirring. If his teacher had to painstakingly refine a protective treasure from scratch, he would definitely not be willing. However, it was a piece of cake for him to refine a complete protective treasure so that his disciple could use it. Snatch. I must snatch it. At this moment, Gu Qianluo was clear that the first altar of the ancestor mother religion was gone. Furthermore, it was impossible for all 6 altars to defend against that black gourd. Hence, he threw the ancestor mother religion to the back of his mind. He only had a single thought, and that was to think of ways to snatch the black gourd. The moment he snatched it, he would be able to spend some effort to help the ancestor mother religion. I must snatch it. Once I get it, I can return. Gu Qianluo had never thought that he would be so lucky to encounter a protective treasure in this cosmos. If it was purely releasing the golden flames, he would not have noticed it. After all, even though the golden flames were powerful, they were not as precious as the primal chaos flying ship. But previously, Dongbo Shuang had used it once when he was at the Paragon realm. Different realms had different powers, and even his offensive techniques were different. This treasure would most likely allow him to unleash greater power when he became a void god. By then, there would be a qualitative change in its power. Dongbo Shuang forcefully snatched the first altar. The other gray altar illusions dissipated, and the world energy in the cultivator cosmos gradually regained its calmness and gentleness. With a thought, Dongbo Shuang severed the golden sun flame. At the same time he stuffed it back. After all, the golden sun flame was too powerful, and would harm the cosmos. Master, be careful. Be careful of Gu Qianluo. The treasure spirit immediately transmitted. Wang. An unseen ripple suddenly descended from the primal chaos flying ship. It was extremely fast and sinister. It was Gu Qianluo who was filled with killing intent. Gu Qianluo's eyes were filled with madness. He had to snatch the protective treasure. Chapter 784. Dongbo Shuang was still worried that the golden flames from the black gourd would harm the cosmos. Just as he plugged the cork, the treasure spirit immediately transmitted a warning. But it was too late. Gu Qianluo's sneak attack this time was to catch the other party off guard, and to be extremely fast. Not good. Dongbo Shuang did not have the time to control the black gourd. With a thought, he immediately hid into the mirage world, disappearing from the place. The current Dongbo Shuang had reached large success in his Tao of Mirage, stepping into the ruler realm. The Tao of Mirage might be weak in terms of offense, but it had formed a world of its own, and was extremely formidable in survival. Some rulers with weaker techniques might not even be able to find the true body of Dongbo Shuang. Wang. Gu Qianluo's attack through the primal chaos flying ship had caused an unseen ripple to sweep across the location where Dongbo Shuang was previously. At that moment, time-space distorted, and the figure of Dongbo Shuang could be vaguely seen in another world. This ripple had also forcefully permeated into the complete mirage world. Though its power had drastically decreased, only 10% to 20% of its original strength was left. Pooh, this attack directly invaded the body of Dongbo Shuang. Nevertheless, his body was like the void, easily dissipating more than half of this attack. The remaining power merely caused the blood in his body to boil. His face turned red, yet he did not spurt out any blood. What, it actually failed to injure him? Gu Qianluo felt disbelief within the primal chaos flying ship. For the sake of catching the other party off guard and speed, even though this attack was slightly weaker, it had still reached the threshold of the Void God realm. It was not any weaker than the attack executed by the two great avatars of Bloodblade and Blackbird Fifth Uncle Master. Such power could not even make Dongbo Shuang spurt out blood? Such a life-saving ability was indeed very exaggerated. But he did not know. The body of a Void Walker was like the Void, and could not be affected by any force. In addition, his body was already tyrannical. Even though he had just reached the 11th level of Walker's hidden secret, his body was already stronger than most religious leaders. Just by relying on his body, he could fight against apex rulers. Thus, it was hard to injure a Void Walker. At the same time, Dongbo Shui Ying's Tao of Mirage was an extremely life-saving Tao in the Laws of Profound Mysteries system. It formed a Mirage world of its own. Wanting to kill a Void Walker, who was hiding in the Mirage world, was indeed too difficult. Gu Qianluo, Dongbo Shui Ying, who was being attacked, looked at his opponent and immediately pulled out the stopper of the black gourd. Boom! Surging golden flames gushed out of the gourd and descended into the real world, charging directly at the chaos flying ship. Boom boom boom. The golden flames engulfed the primal chaos flying ship. However, the primal chaos flying ship remained unscathed. At this moment, Gu Qianluo was thinking about how to deal with Dongbo Shuang. As for the golden flames, he was not afraid at all. What a joke! By relying on the primal chaos flying ship and other external items, he could fight against void gods at his peak. Even if he met with danger in the primal chaos void, he could rely on the primal chaos flying ship to resist against it. Even if the Cosmos Epoch was destroyed, it could not damage the primal chaos flying ship at all, much less the primal chaos flying ship. Even that wooden mustache warship of the ancestor mother religion could not be damaged by the golden flames of the black gourd. Naturally, Gu Qianluo could only hide within the flying ship. The protectors of the ancestor mother religion could only hide within the warship and did not dare to come out. Damn! Dongbo Shuang released the golden flames. Seeing that the primal chaos flying ship was unscathed, he could not help but grit his teeth and stop using the black gourd. He plugged back the stopper. These golden flames of yours are too berserk and destructive, to the point of harming your cosmos. I thought that you would continue to use them until the end of this cosmos epoch. Gu Qianluo's voice reverberated across the void, bringing with it a chilling intent. Master, don't worry. You can only use the black gourd for a short period of time. Furthermore, the area affected by the golden flames is relatively small. The damage it will cause to the cosmos is relatively low. The treasure spirit transmitted. Amen. Dongbo Shuang grabbed the black gourd. He appeared from nothingness and stared coldly at the distant primal chaos flying ship. And Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, and the other rulers were furious. Bloodblade directly roared out. Gu Qianluo, you chose mysterious North Imperial Empress in the past and promised to help us. But now, not only are you helping the ancestor mother religion, but we have already snatched their first altar, and you still dare to ambush Snow Eagle? Haha, I did choose that brat mysterious North Imperial Empress, and swore an oath with her. But I did not violate the oath, right? She has always been in my primal chaos flying ship, and I have never harmed her. A voice transmitted from the primal chaos flying ship. As for my promise to help you? Haha, you still believe in promises? What a joke. Bloodblade and the others were furious. Gu Qianluo did not care about their promises at all with his strength and identity. He did not care about his reputation at all. Within the primal chaos flying ship, the enormous sculpture Gu Qianluo was ridiculing them. At the same time, he was carefully observing Dongbo Shuang, thinking of how to deal with him. He had never given up. That black gourd was a protective treasure. He did not care about the price he had to pay. Amen. Let's follow this plan and risk it all. Gu Qianluo soon had a plan in his heart. Even though Dongbo Shui Ying's figure had appeared, he was still within the mirage world. He was on high alert. Dong. A strange sound resounded from within his soul. However, Dongbo Shui Ying's soul had fused with the complete walker's hidden secret, allowing him to easily resist against it. But this caused Dongbo Shui Ying's expression to change. He immediately pulled out the stopper of the black gourd, causing the golden flames to fly out once again. But this time, not a lot of them flew out. Instead, they revolved around the surface of Dongbo Shui Ying's body, forming a golden sphere with Dongbo Shui Ying standing at the center of this golden sphere. The damage dealt to the cosmos was determined by the amount of golden flames, as well as the area of effect. The greater the amount, the greater the area of effect, and the greater the damage. Just by forming a golden sphere around his body, a radius of 2 to 3 meters, the damage dealt was pitifully low. Huff! 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 Dongbo Shui Ying's cautiousness was not wrong. Other than the soul attack at the start, a strange wind followed closely behind. The wind appeared from nothingness. After passing through the mirage world, its might was greatly reduced. Then it forcefully attacked the golden flames, causing it to be completely exhausted before it could penetrate through. This Gu Qianluo, the Temporal Island Lord, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenita, Monarch Green, Empress Qianhe and the rest were greatly alarmed. They looked at the void around the primal chaos flying ship that was starting to appear one after another. Layers of strange attacks descended. There were 3 types of attacks that targeted the soul, sound, curse, etc. There were also some that targeted the physical body, and some that targeted the world. The array patterns appeared one after another before vanishing. Gu Qianluo gritted his teeth. The gigantic statue was just his appearance. His real body was hidden within the primal chaos flying ship. He was currently sitting cross-legged, and was crazily controlling the primal chaos flying ship to attack. His injuries were already rather severe. Therefore, the sudden burst of such a powerful attack was also very damaging to him. As long as I can obtain this black gourd, everything will be worth it. After obtaining it, I will immediately leave this cosmos. I will let Sang Dan help me control the flying ship, and I will continue sleeping. Gu Qianluo had already made up his mind to continue sleeping. However, what was a protective treasure? What was a protective treasure? Attacking was secondary. The most important thing was protection. The berserk golden flames became extremely obedient under the control of the nothingness array. They formed into a perfect sphere that protected Dongbo Shui Ying. The layers of flames combined beautifully. Everything was under the control of the nothingness array. The might of Gu Qianluo's desperate attacks was indeed terrifying. Some of them could only be slightly weakened by the mirage world. However, the golden flame sphere was able to completely resist them. As for other attacks that could penetrate like soul attacks, they were completely useless against Dongbo Shui Ying. As for other attacks that could penetrate the golden flame sphere, they were basically unable to injure Dongbo Shui Ying. I can't kill him? No. Gu Qianluo was about to go crazy. Under the ancestor bone throne, the sacred sons competed with each other. The weak were prey to the strong. Originally, he was at the bottom, which was why he disregarded everything and chose to roam the primal chaos void. Although he had experienced many dangers, this black gourd was the best treasure he could hope to obtain. Although he was worried that he couldn't kill Dongbo Shui Ying, he still wanted to give it a try. However, the result of his attempt made him even crazier. He wasn't willing to accept it. Amen? Bloodblade looked at the primal chaos flying ship from afar. He looked at the gigantic array diagram that appeared in the void around the flying ship. He was already extremely proficient in arrays. He was able to create the Void Twin Extreme Array. He was even able to create the 12 primal pillars with the strength of a ruler. Currently, he was seeing many mysterious arrays being activated in front of him. This was not something recorded in the Myriad catalog, but a true array being activated and operating. Bloodshed God Emperor could not help but be infatuated by it. His realm was close to that of these arrays, and he could see through many of them. Gradually, his expression turned blank. His mind was blown. That indistinct and blurry new world had finally unfolded in front of him. Chapter 785. At this moment, Dongbui Shuiying was in the mirage world. He was using the black gourd to release golden flames to surround his body. No matter how Gu Qianluo attacked, he could not be injured. Master, you can be rest assured. Gu Qianluo's injuries are severe. He has only recovered after sleeping for a few cosmos epochs. Previously, he had only helped the ancestor mother religion once. Now that he is continuously attacking you, it is highly possible that he has his eyes on the protective treasure, the black gourd. After all, Master has used it once and twice when you were at the Paragon realm. Your offensive techniques are completely different, and their power has exceeded a major realm. This Gu Qianluo is a sacred son under ancestor bone, and his horizons are broad. He should have guessed that the black gourd is a protective treasure. That is why he is acting so crazily. The treasure spirit transmitted, but attacking so crazily will place a huge burden on his body. His injuries will worsen, and he won't be able to hold on for long. Amen. Dongbui Shuiying understood. After reaching the 11th level of Walker's hidden secret, a large amount of information was transmitted into his mind. Various superpowers across the 5 great sacred worlds had cultivated to the final realm. Amongst them was Ancestor Bone. Ancestor Bone was an existence comparable to Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master. He had reached the final realm of cultivation. No. This black gourd is mine. I must obtain it. I must obtain it. Gu Qianluo felt a tearing pain in his soul. His expression turned pale. His blood-colored eyes stared at Dongbui Shuiying. Why is a brat who has yet to leave the cosmos able to obtain a protective treasure, but I don't? Just as he was going crazy, he suddenly turned towards another direction. That was the direction where the blood blade was located. Gu Qianluo's attention was focused on Dongbui Shuiying. He did not care about the other rulers. However, the primal chaos flying ship had enveloped the surrounding void, and could still sense the unique movement from the blood blade. That is, Gu Qianluo's expression changed. Another blood blade appeared in the void. This was the body that was originally on the island. This scene caused Dongbui Shuiying, Monarch Green, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, and the others to be shocked. Because from the start of the war until now, not a single ruler had entered the battlefield with all their bodies. This rule was set by Bloodblade. But now, all 3 of Bloodblade's bodies were here. Buzz! The 3 Bloodblades smiled at each other. At the same time, their bodies merged together to form a single Bloodblade in dark red robes. The Bloodblade was the only one in the entire universe. Boom! A terrifying ripple was emitted from the Bloodblade's body, causing the surrounding void to turn dark. Dark clouds were rolling within, and countless array vein patterns were revolving. Many enormous arrays covered the surrounding starry sky, and that vast and heart-palpitating power caused everyone present to turn sluggish. As far as one's eyes could see, the surrounding void had turned dark. This region had most likely exceeded 50 billion kilometers. Dongbui Shuiying had a formidable control over the void, and he knew that the endless gloom domain released by his teacher had covered a terrifying region approximately the size of a starfield. Void God. Dongbui Shuiying completely understood. Void God, Primal Master, Abyss Primogenitor, Pang-Yi Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, and the others also understood. Seeing this power that far surpassed that of a ruler, everyone understood. Bloodblade has finally taken this step. I knew that this day would come, though who would have thought that he would break through at this moment? Primal Master revealed a grin. Void God, our cosmos epic has finally given birth to a void god. Abyss Primogenitor sighed. Temporal Island Lord was watching silently. He was originally an extremely arrogant person, and was not willing to admit defeat in front of the Bloodshed God Emperor. But at this moment, he understood that the gap between them was too big. The Bloodshed God Emperor had already stepped into another level. Deity, World Deity, True God, Void God. From True God to Void God. This was a huge leap in realm, and the difficulty was high. We still have a long time in this epoch. Pang-Yi revealed a grin after seeing this. Bloodblade has already become a Void God. By the end of this epoch, Bloodblade should be able to reach the height of Ancestor Devil. He dared not hope for reaching the height of Lake Heart Island Master. But it was still possible for him to reach the height of Ancestor Devil. Even though the cultivators and rulers present were shocked and had some other emotions, they were happy too, because this epic had given birth to a void god. Even if this epic was destroyed, the void god could still bring them to roam the primal chaos void and continue living, or even to a wider world. What void god? He broke through to the void god realm? Gu Qianluo was greatly startled. At his peak, he could fight against void gods with the help of the primal chaos flying ship. But now, he had to deal with Dongbue Shuiying, causing him to be heavily injured. It was impossible for him to fight for a long time. Gu Qianluo. Bloodblade's voice reverberated across the endless void. His eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at the distant primal chaos flying ship. Hong Long Long. Two enormous arrays appeared above and below the primal chaos flying ship. One array was made of dark flames, and the other was made of white frost. The two great arrays were revolving, and completely opposite forces were acting on the primal chaos flying ship. It was as if the primal chaos flying ship was being locked down. Bloodshed God Emperor knew that it was hard to break through the arrays, so he decided to imprison the other party first. He has just become a void god, yet he is so strong. Gu Qianluo could feel the might the primal chaos flying ship was facing. His expression could not help but change. He did not know. Bloodblade cultivated two great systems. One was the Laws and Profound Mysteries system, and the other was the Hex system. He specialized in arrays and refining weapons. The Laws and Profound Mysteries system focused on the essence and grasped the laws. The Hex system was the opposite. It focused on researching the myriad existences. Dongbue Shuiying also felt that the Hex system was not any weaker than the Laws and Profound Mysteries system. It was also extremely complex and powerful. This time, Bloodblade had broken through the Hex system. In terms of combat power, he was much stronger than some of the simpler systems like the Ancestor Mother religion. If he were to break through in the Laws and Profound Mysteries system in the future, he would be even more terrifying when he fused the two systems together. Hurry up and leave. I can't fight for long. Gu Qianluo did not dare to stay any longer. Hua! The primal chaos flying ship suddenly turned translucent. With a so, it flew towards the distance. Furthermore, the distant void began tearing apart. Layers of membrane walls were torn apart, as if a curtain had been pulled apart, revealing the vast and icy primal chaos void outside. The chaotic void seemed to be empty, but it contained an extremely powerful destructive power. He wants to leave. Bloodblade and the others understood what was happening. This primal chaos flying ship is too formidable. I can't stop it even though I have just broken through. Bloodblade understood this point too. And within the Ancestor Mother religion's wooden mustache war ship, the group of religious leaders were looking at this scene in complete despair. Previously, when Dongbue Shuiying used the black gourd to snatch away the first altar, they were already in a daze. When Bloodblade became a void god, it made them feel even more despair. If it was just the altar being snatched away, they could still refine it again. But the birth of a void god determined that they were doomed. Nevertheless, they still held on to a strand of hope that Gu Qianluo would save them. But at this moment, Gu Qianluo was ignoring them. Master, please bring my clansmen away. I'll give you all their treasures. Religious leader Sang Dan looked at the enormous sculpture in front of him and begged Gu Qianluo. My injuries are serious. I can't stay any longer. Gu Qianluo coldly said. At this moment his injuries were serious. His soul was being torn apart. He could not help but fall into a deep sleep. He could only grit his teeth and endure. He did not have the mood to waste it on the Ancestor Mother religion. Those treasures of the Ancestor Mother religion? According to what he knew, they were still hidden in that castle. He did not have any time to waste. Furthermore, he was afraid that Bloodblade might have some methods to deal against his soul. The primal chaos flying ship could not defend against soul attacks. In the past, his soul defenses were relatively strong, but now, his soul had become his greatest weakness. His injuries were too serious, and he was about to fall into a deep sleep. The moment he suffered another injury, he would most likely be finished. For the sake of his life, why would he care about the ancestor-mother religion? I won't be able to obtain anything. My injuries will only worsen. Cultivator Cosmos, all of you can forget about having an easy time. Just as the primal chaos flying ship was about to fly out of the passage, suddenly, shio. A total of 9 streams of light flew out of the primal chaos flying ship in different directions. Every stream of light brought with it an incomparably terrifying power. Have a good taste of these 9 little toys of mine. If you are slightly careless, your epic will be gone. Gu Qianluo's eyes were filled with madness. He had suffered a huge loss, and would not let the cultivators have an easy time. Dongbui Shuiying and Bloodblade watched as the primal chaos flying ship escaped. They could not stop it at all. Suddenly, 9 streams of light flew out from the primal chaos flying ship in different directions. This is, with Dongbui Shuiying's perception towards the void, he could easily sense every single stream of light. These 9 streams of light were in fact 9 black spheres. Each of them contained an extremely terrifying power within them. They weren't as pure as the golden sun flames, but they were more berserk and chaotic. At this moment, these powers weren't stable, and it seemed as though they could explode at any moment. This power is even more berserk than the golden sun flames. The moment it explodes, the damage it would cause to the cosmos is simply unimaginable. Dongbui Shuiying's expression changed. Bloodblade's perception was even more acute. At his level, his perception towards the origin of the entire cosmos was extremely acute. He could faintly judge that if these 9 spheres were to explode, it would be enough to destroy this cosmos epic. This caused Bloodblade to feel fear and anger. He was angry at Gu Qianluo's brutality. Snow Eagle, use the black gourd to release the golden sun flames to envelop them. Do your best to weaken their power. Otherwise, our epic will be finished. Bloodblade also did not have any confidence. At this moment he could only go all out. He started to activate the array to weaken them. As for Pang Yi Monarch Green, Abyss Primogenitor, Primal Master, Empress Qianhe and the rest, they looked at the 9 streams of light. Their perception was getting blurry. They only had one feeling. It was fear. Fear that came from the depths of their hearts. Fear of despair. Otherwise this epic will be finished. When Dongbui Shuiying heard his master's transmission, his heart trembled. His wife was only a stage 4 world deity, and his children were even weaker. No, Dongbui Shuiying could no longer care about his hatred and killing intent towards Gu Qianluo. He frantically pulled out the cork of the black gourd. Chapter 786. Bloodblade was incomparably anxious. He was absolutely not willing for his hometown to be destroyed just like that. As for Shuiying, he had gone mad. Because the cosmos epic was ending, his parents, wife, children, and disciples would all die along with the cosmos epic. He would rather die than for his loved ones to die. If he was the only one left in this world, what was the point of cultivating to a formidable level? No. Dongbui Shuiying was so furious that his eyes were about to pop out. Primal Master, Pang Yi, Monarch Green, and the others could not stop this at all. They could only watch as everything unfolded. Ha ha ha, even if we die in battle, we'll make this cosmos epic perish together with us. The religious leaders within the Wooden Mustache warship were originally in despair. When they saw the 9 streams of light, they could sense the terrifying destructive power contained within them, causing them to turn slightly mad. Come, let's have a great apocalypse, and let everything perish in the great apocalypse. In the tranquil starting ground, there were red flowers and green willows. The grasses were gently swaying along with the wind. A skinny black wild dog was currently lying within the grasses, allowing the wind to blow on its fur. Its tail was even swinging back and forth. Truly useless. You've lost the face of your master. The black wild dog snorted before disappearing. Dongbui Shuiying was currently releasing the golden light of the black gourd amidst his anxiety and madness. Bloodblade was also doing his best to control the array. The others were watching, with Gu Qianluo, who was currently flying into the cosmos membrane tear, looking back with a sneer. Right at this moment, an incomparably huge black dog had appeared in the void. It was so big that Dongbui Shuiying and the others could only vaguely see it with their realms. This huge black dog head seemed to be in another world. It was clearly overlapping with the rulers like Pang Yi and Monarch Green, as well as the wooden mustache warship of the ancestor mother religion, yet it did not clash. The huge black dog had opened its bloody mouth. Within its mouth was a primal chaos maelstrom. Its mouth was so big that one could not see its edge. It had already enveloped the 9 streams of light flying in different directions. Following that, this huge dog had abruptly sucked, causing the primal chaos flying ship, that had already flown out of the cosmos membrane tear, to fly back into the mouth of that huge dog head, filled with primal chaos maelstrom. Since you dared to disobey me, you have to pay the price. Gu Qianluo was originally sneering with killing intent, but closely following that, he was stunned. An enormous black wild dog appeared. It was too big. Fortunately, the primal chaos flying ship could sense an extremely wide region. Thus, by relying on the primal chaos flying ship, Gu Qianluo was able to discern that this was an extremely skinny black wild dog. Its body was incomparably huge, and just a single tail could penetrate through several dozen starfields. The length of its body was almost equivalent to a third of the territory of the Bloodshed God Palace. When it opened its mouth, it could envelop several starfields. There was even a primal chaos maelstrom within its mouth that engulfed the 9 streams of light. Quick, 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 quick! Gu Qianluo turned mad. His soul was trembling. He knew that this was the most dangerous time he had ever been in his entire life. He did not care about the soul-tearing pain as he controlled the primal chaos flying ship, trying his best to escape. The speed of the primal chaos flying ship had also increased to its limit. The primal chaos flying ship had already charged out of the cosmos membrane tear, arriving in the primal chaos void outside. But within the cosmos, that enormous black wild dog's cold eyes were looking at this tiny black flying ship. Its enormous mouth merely sucked in a breath. A terrifying swallowing force immediately acted on the primal chaos flying ship. This force was too huge, causing the primal chaos flying ship to fly back with a flying directly into the primal chaos maelstrom within the mouth of the wild dog. No! Seeing the primal chaos flying ship flying in, Gu Qianluo's eyes were filled with despair. How could this be? How could this be? After being swallowed by the wild black dog. Following that, a terrifying ripple engulfed the primal chaos flying ship, directly permeating into it. Gu Qianluo's concealed body was also affected by this ripple. He felt his soul trembling, before losing his consciousness and fainting. Even religious leader Sang Dan and mysterious North Imperial Empress within the primal chaos flying ship fainted. Dongbo Shuiying, Bloodblade, Monarch Green, Temporal Island Lord, and others were all looking at this scene in a daze. The religious leaders within the ancestor mother religion's wooden mustache warship were also watching in a daze. The originally boundless wild black dog instantly shrunk to a size of only a few hundred miles. The wild black dog was very skinny, so skinny that one could even see that it was just skin and bones. It stood in the void, one of its tails swinging as it spoke in the human language. Roar, this is too embarrassing, a disgrace to my master. He was clearly about to win, yet he was tricked by Gu Qianluo. Senior. Bloodblade took the initiative to speak. At this moment he was still puzzled. Where did this terrifying wild black dog come from? According to the intelligence he received, once one stepped into the void god realm, one could not enter other cosmos, because the cosmos protected all beings within it. Existences that were too strong were forbidden from entering. Naturally, if one was too strong, like Voidwalker Gu Qi, he was so strong that he was comparable to Forefather Tianyu. He could easily destroy a cosmos, and the cosmos could not stop him. Hence he could easily enter. Causing the destruction of a cosmos epoch and destroying a cosmos were two completely different levels. Within a cosmos, many epochs would cycle continuously. The moment the internal environment was destroyed and was no longer suitable for cultivation, the cosmos would naturally destroy the epoch before giving birth to a new environment suitable for cultivation. The cycle of epochs was also a part of the operation of a cosmos. The cosmos itself was very stable and powerful, but the strength of this wild black dog had completely surpassed a new void god like him. Furthermore, it was within a cosmos? Many thanks, Senior. Dongbua Shui Ying and Temporal Island Lord expressed their gratitude one after another. The two of them were acquainted with the wild black dog. I've met Senior before, but who would have thought that Senior is so formidable? Temporal Island Lord said. Amen. The wild black dog acknowledged with slight arrogance. He then turned to Dongbua Shui Ying and Bloodblade before praising. Bloodblade, not bad. It is still early in this cosmos epoch, yet you have become a void god. You are currently at the void god origin birth realm. And by the end of this epoch, you should have hopes of reaching the unity realm. Haha. The only one who has reached the void unity realm in this cosmos is Ancestor Devil. Swordmaster is on a higher level. Many thanks for your praise, Senior. Bloodblade felt even more bewildered. It seemed that this wild black dog was familiar with every expert in his cosmos epoch. He was familiar with Lake Heart Island Master and Ancestor Devil. Dongbua. The wild black dog looked at Dongbua Shui Ying before glancing at the black gourd in his hand. Who would have thought that as a disciple of my great void heaven temple, you have cultivated for such a short period, yet you have another powerful inheritance? Voidwalker Guqi's techniques were too profound. The wild black dog did not discover it. As for the black gourd, it did not think that the black gourd was formidable in the past. Only this time, it could see that it was a protective treasure. For the other party to refine such a protective treasure, and allow Dongbua Shui Ying to use it when he was at the opening realm, it was absolutely an amazing existence. Even if he could not defeat Forefather Tianyu, he should be close to it. It's just luck, Dongbua Shui Ying said. He felt both delighted and shocked in his heart. Previously, he knew that the wild black dog had once bitten off a piece of meat from Lake Heart Island Sword Master. He only felt that it was powerful, but he did not know how powerful it was. This time he was truly frightened. However, after thinking about it carefully, it made sense. After all, Lake Heart Island Sword Master was only a step away from Forefather Tianyu. For the wild black dog to be able to injure him, its strength should be close to that of Sword Master. It might even be stronger than Ancestor Devil. That's right, there's still this fool. The wild black dog spat out 3 beams of light. One of the beams of light was caught by its claw. It was the unconscious Gu Qianluo. The other 2 beams of light were the unconscious mysterious North Imperial Empress and Sect Master Sang Dan. Wake up! The wild black dog grabbed onto Gu Qianluo's paw and shook it. Gu Qianluo's body trembled as he started to wake up. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw a huge wild black dog standing in the void in front of him. He was so scared that his face turned deathly pale. Chapter 787. Spare me. Senior, spare me. Spare me. Gu Qianluo didn't even have the slightest thought of resisting, as he started to beg for mercy. Although he was terrified, he still had hope. From his point of view, if Gu Qianluo wanted to kill him, he would have already done so. It was also possible that Gu Qianluo knew of his master, Ancestor Bone. Ancestor Bone was after all an existence that had cultivated to the pinnacle. His influence and status were extremely high. This wild black dog in front of him should be afraid of his master. Spare me. The wild black dog grabbed Gu Qianluo with its claws and looked at him. Ho, you fool. I can treat you as if you don't exist, even after sleeping for a few eras in this cosmos. It's fine if you escaped after fighting with bloodshed and the rest. But you actually wanted to destroy the cosmos created by my master and destroy this cosmos epoch? You are really courting death. Gu Qianluo was alarmed when he heard this. However, he was puzzled and could not help but ask. Senior, your master created this cosmos? Let alone Gu Qianluo. Even the rulers present like Pang Yi, Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Master, Abyss Primogenitor and Empress Qian, he revealed shocked expressions. Upon seeing this, Dongbua Shui Ying sighed inwardly. It seemed that very few people knew that Ancestor Tianyu created this cosmos. He only knew about this when he met Voidwalker Guqi. Even when he first entered the starting ground, he thought that the master of the starting ground was a mysterious expert. He did not know that the other party was the creator of this cosmos. After he passed the opening realm test and entered the straw hut, he saw Ancestor Tian Yu's image. Only then did Ancestor Tian Yu said that he was the creator of this cosmos. There were very few who knew that Ancestor Tian Yu created this cosmos. The wild black dog and the white-haired old man knew about it, but they did not say anything. Voidwalker Gucci also knew about it, but he only told him his successor, Lake Heart Island Sword Master, and a few others who passed the opening realm test probably knew about it too. However, they would not easily tell their juniors about this secret. If they were weak, there was no point in knowing about it. Dongbo Shuang looked around. My master and Yuanshu master seem to know about this? Bloodblade looked at Dongbo Shuang and smiled. Snow Eagle, I didn't expect you to become a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Bloodblade knew that this cosmos was created by forefather Tianyu, but the Great Void Heaven Temple was only created after he became a void god. Information was transmitted directly into his mind from the cosmos, of which there were large amounts of information regarding the Great Void Heaven Temple and the 5 great sacred worlds. There was also a map leading to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. In the starting ground, one has to pass the opening realm test to become a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Dongbo Shuang transmitted his voice. Patriarch is the patriarch of our universe. Naturally, we are also members of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Bloodblade nodded. They were in a relaxed mood. Gu Qianluo was horrified. Master? How could an existence at this level be willing to be a servant? Furthermore, why would he stay in the cosmos for a long period? Isn't this equivalent to being imprisoned in a prison? He was clear of the strength of the wild black dog in front of him. It could absolutely be a forefather in the outside world. Only existences who had reached the final realm of cultivation were qualified to make them lower their heads. Even so, experts had their own pride. Reaching this level, there were few who were willing to be a servant. Even if there were eccentrics who were willing to be a servant with such terrifying strength, most of them would have more desires. It was impossible for them to protect a cosmos for a long period. How could there be any experts who were too powerful within the cosmos? They would not be able to temper their strength at all. Staying here was equivalent to being imprisoned. Hence, there was only one explanation. This wild black dog isn't a true life form. It should be a puppet refined by someone. Gu Qianluo thought. Because it wasn't a true life form, it would absolutely obey the orders of its master. But Gu Qianluo became even more horrified as he thought about this. The number of existences who could refine such a terrifying puppet could be counted with one's fingers. After all, not everyone specialized in refining puppets. For instance, forefather Tianyu. He was an existence who had reached the final realm of the laws and profound mysteries system. He could also be good at refining puppets. For instance, the Ancestor Mother Religion system and the Void Walker system. They were much weaker in terms of refining. Refining a puppet that is close to the Void Primal Chaos realm is much harder than creating a cosmos. Paying such a huge price to refine such a puppet, yet it was thrown into a cosmos? Gu Qianluo felt that he was going crazy. Entering a cosmos. This cosmos was actually created. Forget it. There was actually a terrifying puppet that was refined in this cosmos? How could the existence that created this cosmos be willing to do so? Gu Qianluo could not believe it. If his teacher Ancestor Bone had such a powerful subordinate, he would definitely bring him along with him. Many matters could be arranged for such a subordinate to handle, because such a subordinate would be absolutely loyal and sufficiently powerful. But forefather Tian, you had thrown this wild black dog here. You could have chosen not to die, yet you are seeking death. Naturally, I have to fulfill your wish. Bloodblade, Dongbua, the few of you fellows don't have any objections, right? If not, I'll eat him up. The wild black dog looked towards Dongbua Shuang and the rest. Dongbua Shuang, Bloodblade and the rest shook their heads. No objections. All of them wanted to kill Gu Qianluo as soon as possible. Eat me up. Gu Qianluo was startled awake from his thoughts. Looking at the wild black dog in front of him, he immediately begged, Senior, spare me, spare my life. Ho ho, the wild black dog roared twice. It deliberately bared its teeth, revealing its snow-white teeth. Saying that, it grabbed Gu Qianluo with its claws and slowly stuffed him into its mouth. Seeing this, Gu Qianluo became anxious. I am a disciple under Ancestor Bone. I am the seventh sacred son. You cannot kill me. If you kill me, Ancestor Bone will never let you off. Ancestor Bone. The wild black dog stopped. It curled its lips. Why would my great void heaven temple be afraid of an old skeleton like him? If he has the capabilities, let him fight with my master? Existences that cultivated to the pinnacle would have different levels of strength. Forefather Tian, you was a terrifying existence. Ancestor Bone. Indeed, Forefather Tian, you did not care. Humph. In the distance, Dongbua Shuang shook his head inwardly. Forefather Tian, you did not care about Ancestor Bone. Now his great void heaven temple had two existences. Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master. How could a mere Ancestor Bone compare to the power and prosperity of their current forces? Furthermore, Forefather Tian Yu was famous for being protective. It was precisely because he was too protective and concerned about his juniors. Therefore, he did not hesitate to refine a wild black dog to protect the universe he created. Gu Qianluo also knew about the reputation of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He could not help but become anxious. If you want to kill me, why don't you just kill me directly? You even captured me alive, and now you want to kill me? I captured you alive so that I can scold you and let you die in despair and fear. The wild black dog bared its white teeth. Gu Qianluo was stunned. He captured him alive just to scold him? To make him feel even more fear? This die. The wild black dog was still slowly grabbing onto Gu Qianluo. Gu Qianluo frantically struggled, but an invisible force enveloped him. He was basically unable to resist, and could only watch in despair as the giant mouth got closer and closer. Gu Qianluo was directly thrown into the mouth. The enormous wild black dog swallowed him with two kacha sounds. He then looked towards Bloodblade, Dongbua Shuang and the rest. Dongbua Shuang and the rest were also somewhat speechless. This wild black dog senior was truly lively. He intentionally reprimanded his enemies before killing them. Why are all of you looking at me? The wild black dog stared. Could it be that you still want that primal chaos flying ship? The eyes of Bloodblade, Dongbua Shuang, Pang Yi, Monarch Green and the rest lit up. The wild black dog was so powerful that the primal chaos flying ship was useless. However, it was still very attractive to them. Don't even think about it. The wild black dog sneered. Master said that one has to rely on oneself in the path of cultivation. There's no such thing as reaping without sowing. This Gu Qianluo was killed by me, and the primal chaos flying ship was snatched by me. Of course it belongs to me. Dongbua Shuang and the rest were speechless. You are so powerful. What use do you have for a primal chaos flying ship? The flying ship naturally belongs to Senior. Bloodblade chuckled. Who would have thought that our cosmos would still have a senior protecting it? If we had known, we wouldn't have fought so crazily in this war. Humph. If not for Gu Qianluo wanting to destroy this cosmos epoch, I wouldn't have acted so easily. The wild black dog snorted. Master said that one has to rely on oneself in cultivation. The war with the ancestor mother religion is also a form of tempering for you all. You all died because you are not strong enough. Unless their ancestor mother religion is about to establish a sacrificial altar to change the cosmos, only then will I act. Humph. The ancestor mother religion is indeed tyrannical. Fortunately, my master is formidable and left behind a backup plan. She must be dreaming if she wants to turn the cosmos created by master into their ancestor mother religion cosmos. The wild black dog sneered. In reality, not many existences who cultivated to the final realm would leave behind a terrifying puppet that was 10 times more precious than the cosmos. Properly cultivate. The wild black dog swept his gaze across Bloodblade, Dongbua Shuang and the others. You all have protection within the cosmos, but it's much more dangerous outside. Oh right, do you want me to help you deal with that ancestor mother religion warship? The wild black dog's gaze landed on that wooden mustache warship. His eyes had a strand of light. He loved collecting. No need, no need, Bloodblade said. I'll spend some time to deal with it. Oh, the wild black dog acknowledged. He then turned around unhurriedly. With a step, his figure turned illusory and disappeared without a trace. Only then did Bloodblade let out a sigh of relief. He still wanted to get the treasures of the ancestor mother religion. The wild black dog's actions would all end up in his hands. Bloodblade, that religious leader from the ancestor mother religion? Abyss Primogenitor pointed at the unconscious religious leader, sang Dan in the distant void. Exterminate him. Bloodblade was indifferent. He then turned his gaze to the distant wooden mustache warship. Fellow Taoists, I only have a single body now. Thus, I'll have to trouble you all to evacuate the clansmen from the Lake Heart Island historical remain. Bloodblade laughed. The war has ended. Amen. Dongbua Shui-Ying and the others revealed a grin. That's right, it was time for them to evacuate. But after this battle and looking at seniors, we are still weak, Bloodblade said. After the war, all of you should properly cultivate. Our Cosmos Epoch might not necessarily be weaker than the third Cosmos Epoch. Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, Pang Yi Primal Master, Temporal Island Lord and the others were all filled with fighting spirit. They had been stimulated by Dongbua Shui-Ying's combat power, Bloodblade's breakthrough, the crisis of the Cosmos Epoch apocalypse, the strength of the wild black dog. All these stimulations made them want to become stronger. Chapter 788. In the depths of the Lake Heart Island, Pang Yi, Monarch Green, Purgatory Ruler, Temporal Island Lord, Abyss Primogenitor, Empress Qian He, Myriad God Palace Head and Primal Master were all present. Among them, Pang Yi picked up the Eden treasure and smiled. Everyone, let's head out. Brother Pang Yi, wait up. A voice rang out. The white-robed Dongbua Shui-Ying appeared out of nowhere. He was a member of the Army of Destruction and was able to teleport in from the outside world. Dongbua? You even rushed over for such a small matter. The rulers were all laughing. In the world of cultivators, the strong were respected. Shui-Ying's display of terrifying combat power had naturally earned him the respect of everyone. Furthermore, everyone vaguely understood that with such a fast cultivation speed, if there was anyone in this Cosmos Epoch who could catch up to the Bloodshed God Emperor, it would most likely be Shui-Ying. There's a small matter that I have to trouble all of you with. Release old ancestor Black Devil from the Eden treasure. Dongbua Shui-Ying spoke. After which, he turned to the Temporal Island Lord. Temporal Island Lord, please forgive me. I have to take revenge for my master. The Temporal Island Lord frowned as his expression turned ugly. No matter what, old ancestor Black Devil was his subordinate. Now that Dongbua Shui-Ying clearly wanted to kill old ancestor Black Devil in the name of taking revenge for his master, the Temporal Island Lord was infuriated. He also understood that whether or not he wanted to release old ancestor Black Devil depended on Bloodblade. This was because the Eden treasure belonged to Bloodblade. He wouldn't be able to stop Bloodblade, even if he wanted to. Humph. The Temporal Island Lord snorted coldly. An esteemed ruler killing a powerful existence? Isn't that too much of a bully? I've said it before. I have to take revenge for my master. Dongbua Shui-Ying's voice turned cold. He had already given the Temporal Island Lord a lot of face by taking the initiative to say it. Would the Temporal Island Lord be able to stop him? Humph. The Temporal Island Lord laughed coldly. Indeed, Hegemon Dongbo's power is higher than mine. Within the ruins of Lake Heart Island, you and Pang Yi won't be obstructed at all. I won't be able to protect him, but do you really think you can kill him? One of his clones isn't in this universe. Dongbua Shui-Ying sneered. He had discovered it long ago. In the entire universe, only a single body of Patriarch Black Fiend could be found through karma. The other doppelganger couldn't be found at all. It was either hiding in the starting ground or some similar place. Either that or they had gone to other universes. Oh, there was also the possibility that he didn't have an avatar. It would be a joke if old ancestor Black Devil didn't cultivate an avatar to save his life. If he didn't cultivate an avatar, he would still die if his true body was killed. That's right. His other avatar is indeed in another cosmos, and has yet to return. The Temporal Island Lord sneered. Does ruler Dongbo still have the confidence to kill him? Pang Yi laughed. With a thought, old ancestor Black Devil directly appeared beside him. This was because the moment Dongbo Shuang arrived, he had already borrowed the power of his law domain to forcefully isolate all karmic transmissions. Within his own law domain, he could create his own laws, and his words would be absolute. The other rulers could also use their law domains to resist. However, everyone understood what Dongbo Shuang wanted. There was no need for them to go against Dongbo Shuang at this moment. The Temporal Island Lord had no way to warn Old Ancestor Black Devil. Island Lord. Old Ancestor Black Devil glanced at the Temporal Island Lord. After that, he saw the group of rulers around him. At the same time, he also saw the white-robed Dongbo Shuang. This caused his heart to tremble. However, his other avatar had entered another cosmos by chance. Hence, he was still able to maintain his calm. Old Ancestor Black Devil. Dongbo Shuang spoke. His voice was fleeting and fleeting. Old Ancestor Black Devil only felt the world before his eyes distorting. The other rulers could see that Old Ancestor Black Devil's eyes had already turned sluggish. They instantly understood that Old Ancestor Black Devil had fallen into a trap. Dongbo Shuang. Old Ancestor Black Devil seemed to have regained his senses. He pointed to the void beside him and roared in rage. You want to kill me? What a pity my luck is good. My other avatar isn't even in this cosmos. It's impossible for you to kill me. As for this body of mine, haha, if you want to kill me, I'll let you kill me. Ha ha ha, boom. Accompanied by his laughter, Old Ancestor Black Devil suddenly exploded. Admirable. The Purgatory ruler spoke. You actually managed to make Black Devil commit suicide despite being in another cosmos. Black Devil's avatar committed suicide first before his true body committed suicide. The Primal Master spoke as he praised. Truly impressive. The Temporal Island Lord's expression turned even more unsightly. It's just some illusory realms. Dongbo Shuang said. His Tao of Mirage had reached the ruler realm. In terms of controlling illusory realms, he was the number one in the cultivator cosmos. He was merely an ordinary powerful existence. But in just a single exchange, Dongbo Shuang had caused him to fall into an illusory realm. His true body and avatar were connected by memories, and both of them fell into an illusory realm at the same time. Dongbo Shuang easily let Old Ancestor Black Devil's avatar and true body to commit suicide one after another. After the avatar committed suicide, the true body's soul would be unique. The Primal Master had used a secret technique to discover this point. Let's go. The Temporal Island Lord coldly spoke. Let's go. Pang Yi nodded. Who? In an instant he brought everyone out of the Lake Heart Island historical remnant, arriving in the starry sky outside. In the vast starry sky, Pang Yi began to teleport out a large number of cultivators from his Eden treasure. Paragons, powerful existences, world deities, and even some talented young fellows. The peak elites of the entire cultivator cosmos were all teleported out. Proceed according to the previous plan. Pang Yi spoke. Yes. The group of paragons and powerful existences acknowledged the order. They were in charge of moving the cultivators in batches, though their gazes could not help but land on the body of Dongbo Shuang. They could sense that one of the three ancestors of the Bloodshed God Palace, Monarch Dongbo, was currently together with the rulers. His unseen aura was not any weaker than that of the rulers, and this startled them. They did not dare believe that Dongbo Shuang, who had cultivated for such a short period of time, had become a ruler. But the scene before them forced them to let their imaginations run wild. Monarch Dongbo has indeed become a ruler. If not for Monarch Dongbo, the war with the ancestor mother religion would not have ended so quickly. Pang Yi said. Monarch Green, Primal Master, and the others nodded. At that moment, the entire place turned silent. Other than the many powerful existences present, almost all the world deities in the cultivator cosmos, as well as a large number of young fellows, had heard it clearly. The legendary Monarch Dongbo had actually reached the ruler realm. This shocked them greatly. This was a legend. The war had ended, and everyone began returning to their own places. The entire cultivator cosmos regained its peace. The powerful existences at the apex also knew that other than monarch Dongbo, who had become a ruler, the publicly acknowledged strongest existence in the deity world and abyss, Bloodblade, had reached a higher realm, shocking many powerful existences. Senior disciple brother Huiming and Chihua Laozu knew that forefather Black Devil had died, and the knot in their hearts had been resolved. Compared to Dongbo Shuiying, their feelings for Sacred Master Crimson Dust were much deeper. Dongbo Shuiying and Sacred Master Crimson Dust did not have much feelings for each other. On one hand, he had killed forefather Black Devil to repay a debt of gratitude, and on the other hand, forefather Black Devil had committed all sorts of crimes, inciting his killing intent. I have already become a ruler. Many of the things I wanted to do in the past should be done now. Dongbo Shuiying thought. It's just that Sky Island Master will most likely resist fiercely. Chapter 789. Master. A deep voice could be heard. Temporal Island Lord, who was seated cross-legged on the silvery white grass mat, opened his eyes. He knew that this voice belonged to the treasure spirit of the Temporal Temple. What's the matter? Temporal Island Lord asked. The few brats I controlled have been forcefully brought away by Monarch Dongbo, the deep voice continued. Furthermore, he has removed the imprint I left on the souls of those brats. Those few brats are none other than Qinhuang, Maishan Master, and a few others whom Monarch Dongbo got acquainted with when he was a transcendent. Humph. Temporal Island Lord snorted coldly. So be it. There are trillions of reincarnators, and those few can't be missed. Yes. The deep voice obediently acknowledged. Go. Temporal Island Lord was too lazy to speak any further. This Dongbo Shuiying is a person who values relationships. Temporal Island Lord's eyes were filled with coldness. It was just that a figure was faintly appearing in the deepest part of his heart. That figure was distant and indistinct. He once had the most important person in his life, just that everything was fake and a joke. Temporal Island Lord sneered with a low voice. Previously, I've received intelligence that he had reversed time-space and revived a batch of brats from the River of Time. What Tong San, Chung Ling Shu, and the other weaklings. It is fine if they are just people from the Xia people's world. But who would have thought that he would even save those reincarnators who had crossed the Crimson Rock Mountain together with him? He is truly soft-hearted, yet he could become a ruler so quickly. Even though he felt unhappy, he could not do anything about it. Dongbo Shuiying was the strongest amongst rulers in terms of combat power. Only Monarch Green and Purgatory Ruler could compare with him. If he were to use that black gourd, unless Bloodblade acted, he would be unparalleled. Temporal Island Lord could only endure the suppression in terms of combat power. Furthermore, with the current state of the cosmos, Bloodblade had become a void god, and was high above everyone else. Nobody was willing to offend Bloodblade, because in the future when the cosmos reincarnation cycle ended, Bloodblade would have to bring them along with him. Bloodblade and Dongbo Shuiying are master and disciple. Regardless of whether it was because of Dongbo Shuiying's strength, potential, or for the sake of the future, the rulers would definitely try to befriend Dongbo Shuiying. Even the eccentric Temporal Island Lord could only endure it. Since he had the strength, he should do what he needed to do. Dongbo Shuiying had indeed revived a large number of people. However, to him, it was as easy as lifting a finger. To many of the people who had been revived, it was extremely important. When the Maishan Master and his true love saw each other, their faces were covered with tears. Qinhuang laughed like a madman, laughing so hard that tears came out of his eyes. Master. In the starry sky, Dongbo Shuiying arrived at the base of the ancestor mother religion. That spherical fort was currently surrounded by many complicated arrays. Bloodblade was standing in the starry sky watching from afar. At the same time, he was controlling the arrays and pondering over them. As for that wooden mustache war ship, it had long been destroyed. Those religious leaders within had been killed mercilessly by Bloodblade. Snow Eagle, you are here. Bloodblade chuckled as he looked at his disciple. He then turned to the ancient spherical fort in front of him and sighed. There are only 2 religious leaders within this base of the ancestor mother religion, and they have been killed by me using a secret technique. Currently, there is no life within this fort, Yet I can't open it or refine it. Snow Eagle, do you have any ideas? Dongbo Shuang was inwardly startled. His teacher was indeed a void god. He could actually kill the two religious leaders within the base of the ancestor mother religion. In terms of arrays and treasures, I am far too lacking compared to teacher. Teacher, you should not ask me about these. Dongbo Shuang said. Bloodblade chuckled. That's right. Even though his disciple was talented, researching the myriad existences required him to spend a long time, energy and comprehension ability. Only then would he have great accomplishments. It would not do if he did not have sufficient time. You aren't here just to see me, right? Bloodblade chuckled. Speak, what's the matter? With his current realm, he was absolutely unparalleled within the cosmos. What he wanted to do now was to walk further on his path of cultivation. Ancestor Devil and Lake Heart Island Sword Master of the same race had walked ahead of him. There's a matter, Dongbo Shuang solemnly said. Teacher, the temporal temple is a huge tumor rooted in the deity world, abyss, and even the material realm. They can even forcefully abduct grade 3 true meaning transcendents and control their souls, forcing them to participate in life and death missions, forcing them to temper themselves between life and death, causing batches of them to die. Only grade 2 true meaning transcendents have the right to reject. But how hard is it for a grade 2 true meaning transcendent to emerge in a mortal world? One can say that the temporal temple can capture anyone they want in the mortal world. Trillions of living beings have been tortured to death. Even if a small minority became deities, they would still be controlled by them. The moment one is captured by them, it is too hard for them to regain their freedom. Dongbo Shuang looked at Bloodblade. The temporal temple should not exist. Even if it can exist, it cannot wantonly abduct countless living beings across the cosmos. Bloodblade nodded after hearing that. What you said is logical. I agree. You came looking for me because you want me to act. Yes. The temporal island lord controls space-time. If I were to speak, he would most likely not lower his head. But if teacher were to act, things would be different. Dongbo Shuang said. Bloodblade nodded lightly. Back then, Yuanshu and the rest were against it, but we could not do anything to the temporal island lord. We could only negotiate with him, to set down some rules, to maintain the balance of the cosmos. But now it's time to change. Bloodblade nodded. Let's do it this way. From today onwards, the temporal temple can only take away the souls of those who have already died. We will reconstruct their fleshy bodies, and allow them to start a new life. All right. Dongbo Shuang's eyes brightened. Those who had died were already finished. If they could start a new life, it would be a good thing. Then it's decided. Bloodblade nodded. With his current status, a single word from the temporal island lord would have to listen to him obediently. If he did not listen, he would directly destroy the temporal temple. Teacher, I have always wanted to ask. Why did you build the Bloodshed Tavern back then? Dongbo Shuang asked. Bloodblade's brows twitched. He laughed. You brat, there are two reasons why I built the Bloodshed Tavern in the deity world, abyss and the material world. Firstly, assassins will never be eradicated. Since that's the case, I will set down some rules for the assassin industry. Secondly, and also the main reason, is because I built the Bloodshed Tavern. Countless assassins in the entire cosmos will go and kill. And I will be part of this karma. Every day and night, I will be subjected to endless karma. Slaughter, blood, hatred. All of this will temper my heart, allowing my comprehension of the Tao of destruction and Tao of bloodshed to deepen. Dongbo Shuang was startled. For cultivation, every day and night, countless karma would be placed on his body. Countless blood and wails would surround him. These days were simply torture. Go, Bloodblade said. Bloodblade opened his mouth, and Temporal Island Lord immediately became obedient. From now on, the temporal temple could only capture the souls of the dead. Many reincarnators who were captured previously had a chance to choose. They could choose their freedom. If they chose to continue being a reincarnator, they would be greatly rewarded. Time passed. Because of the birth of the Void God, there was an unparalleled existence protecting the entire cosmos. Hence, the cosmos became more peaceful. Everyone knew that they could leave the cosmos epic after it ended. Without that sense of urgency, the relationship between the rulers became much better. Year passed. Dongbu Shuiying brought an avatar of his disciple Little Chong 7 out, allowing Little Chong 7 to have a wider world to temper himself. As for his wife Jingqiu, Dongbu Yu Dongbu Qing Yao, his disciple Mo Chong Yin, disciple Jia Yin, and Qiu Qibai, Dongbu Shuiying, they had all been sent to the Devil Mountain Cosmos once, though they did not stay for more than 1,000,000 years. The longest was Mo Chong Yin, who stayed for 980,000 years. Naturally, 1,000,000 years in the cultivator cosmos was 3 billion years in the Devil Mountain Cosmos. With the help of Dongbu Shuiying's good friend Third Highness Jiao Yin Lu, Jingqiu, and the others were given the best environment to cultivate. They could cultivate in other systems, and there were experts of other systems, guiding them in the Devil Mountain Cosmos. In the end, his daughter Dongbu Qing Yao spent a total of 900 million years cultivating, and she was the first to transcend. The other was his eldest disciple Mo Chong Yin. He spent 3 billion years before becoming a powerful existence. As for the others, they were stuck at the stage for world deity realm. Jingqiu had cultivated in another hex Dao path, yet she could not transcend temporarily. Black Fog Sea, Dongbu Monarch Residence. The white-robed Dongbu Shuiying was staring at the starry sky by himself. A figure suddenly appeared beside him. It was Jingqiu. Snow Eagle. Jingqiu said in a low voice. They won't be able to last much longer. Dongbu Shuiying's body trembled. His father, mother, younger brother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and the others had all tried their best to cultivate to the deity realm. The lifespan of a deity was limited. Usually it would be around 100 million years. A few days ago, his father and mother were about to reach the end of their lifespan. However, by relying on the Eden treasure to control the flow of time, they were waiting. They were waiting for Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and Dongbu Qingshi. They wanted to travel together. Their mentality was very good, and they felt that they would be satisfied for the rest of their lives. Father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, Little Stone. Dongbu Shuiying's heart was trembling. The most important people in his life were these few. But now all of them were about to leave. They were about to leave for good. Dongbu Shuiying felt an emptiness in his heart. On this day, Dongbu Shuiying was filled with fear. But it still came. He once thought that he would be able to accept it calmly. But when the moment truly arrived, he discovered that his life was being sliced apart. His heart was being sliced apart. It was extremely painful. Come, let us head over, Dongbu Shuiying said. Chapter 790. The Dongbu monarch estate occupied a vast area. Dongbu Lai, Mo Yangyu, Dongbu Qingshi, Zongling, and Tongsan were all living here. After all, they had become gods for over 10,000 years, and were unable to enter the world of the Xia people. The monarch estate had carved out a small area, and their residences were all very close to each other. Dongbu Shuiying and Jingqiu walked out of the void, arriving at their parents' residence. Brother, sister-in-law, we've been waiting for you. Dongbu Qingshi was waiting at the door. Upon seeing them, his eyes lit up as he called out, Qingshi. Dongbu Shuiying laughed. Both he and his brother had lived for far too long, but the memories of their childhood were still very clear. That wimpy kid who would lie on his chest, drooling and snoring, and the scenes of him and his brother relying on each other for survival. They would never be able to forget. Let's go. Dongbu Shuiying walked over and hugged his brother. Today, you have to accompany me for a drink. Of course. Qingshi smiled, his smile extremely radiant. The two brothers walked into the house with their arms around each other's shoulders. Jingqiu followed behind them, smiling as she watched this scene. She was very clear what this day meant to her husband. There were no servants around. If the servants were to see their dignified ruler hugging someone's shoulders, they would probably be stunned. Within the house, the tall and sturdy lion-headed lion man Uncle Tong San, the six-armed serpent-tailed serpent man Zong Ling, the purple-robed serpent man Mo Yangyu, as well as the laughing Dongbu Lai, were chatting happily. They all sensed something and looked towards the door. only to see Dongbo Shui Ying and Qing Shi walking in together. Haha, the snow eagle is here. Uncle Tong laughed, his voice extremely loud. We were just waiting for you. Zhongling smiled as well. Come, come, come. Brothers, please take a seat. Dongbo Lai urged. Mo Yangyu also walked over to move the chairs. Dongbo Shuang glanced around. The layout of the house was very similar to his ancestral home, Snow Rock Castle. The dining table was long, and a group of people sat around it. As Dongbo Shuang grew stronger, it had been a long time since he sat around a table to eat and drink. Everyone sit, Dongbo Lai shouted. Snow Eagle Jingqiu, the two of you sit here. Mother Mo Yangyu also arranged and urged. Soon the group of people sat down. Dongbo Shui Ying and Jingqiu were leaning against each other. On his left were Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong, while opposite Uncle Zong and Uncle Tong were Dongbo Lai and Mo Yangyu. Opposite Dongbo Shui Ying was his younger brother Qing Shi. No one sat at the head of the table. In the past, it was usually his father Dongbo Lai who sat at the head of the table. But this time his father, Dongbo Lai, was sitting together with his mother, leaning against each other. Today's food was cooked by me and Ayu. Let's raise our cups first. Dongbo Lai smiled as he raised his cup. It's been a long time since I ate father and mother's cooking. Dongbo Shuang also raised his cup. Everyone drank together. Zhongling finished his wine and put down his wine cup. Drinking here reminds me of Snorrock Castle. At that time, Tong San and I accompanied Shui Ying and Qing Shi. At that time, Qing Shi was still immature and only knew how to fool around. At that time, Shui Ying practiced his spear arts every day, to the point where he had to soak in a medicinal bath every day. What do you mean I only know how to cause trouble? Qing Shi muttered. Isn't that so? Tong San, who was at the side, curled his lips. Your brother was so tired every day. You even wanted your brother to accompany you to sleep at night. Luckily, Snow Eagle had a good temper. If you were in my Lion Man tribe, he would have thrown you aside. Qing Shi also laughed. I really don't dare to think about it. Back then, I thought that Snow Eagle would be amazing if he could become a transcendent. Who would have thought that he would surpass my imagination? Zhongling said. Back then, the sorcerer god and great demon god, who caused our Xia people's world to face a great calamity, also lost their lives. Now Snow Eagle has become one of the peak existences in the deity world and abyss, and is ranked amongst the rulers. The others nodded. As they approached death, they could not help but recall their lives. In the past, they had thought that the dazzling existences were not worth mentioning at all. The great demon god had been dealt with long ago. Even the sorcerer god, who was the lord of the material world, had cultivated to become a stage 2 world deity. After Dongbo Shuang had become a ruler, he had easily killed him through karma. Cultivation can be said to be difficult. Dongbo Lai said. Back then, I was brought to the Crimson Rock Mountain world by Snow Eagle. Only after receiving the best guidance did I become a transcendent. Afterwards, I was reborn many times, and a large number of treasures were used on me. Only then did I step into the deity realm with great difficulty. From then on, I no longer had any hope of becoming a world deity. Cultivation is truly difficult. If not for Snow Eagle, you wouldn't even be able to become a transcendent. Mo Yangyu said. In the Crimson Rock Mountain world, there were many times when you had fallen into desperate straits and called for your son's help. Just thinking about it makes me feel ashamed. What's there to be ashamed about? I called for Snow Eagle's help when I was in desperate straits. Is that wrong? Dongbo Lai glared at her. Come, 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 Snow Eagle, let us drink. Uncle Tong San picked up the flask of wine and drank with Shuang. He shook his big lion head, feeling quite pleased. You've allowed me to come back to life, and even live for more than 100 million years. Haha, you've saved me, but I've created a Lion Man tribe. Dongbo Shuang laughed. It's all because of you, Uncle Tong, that you are able to have so many children and grandchildren. The Lion Man tribe was too fertile. Because of Tong San, the Lion Man tribe became stronger. They formed a huge tribe, and had even entered several planets in the deity world. Everyone was chatting, but Dongbo Shui Ying and Jingqiu were listening attentively, and would occasionally say a few words. After eating for a long time, Dongbo Shuang had also drunk a lot of wine. There were many large wine vats on the ground beside the dining hall. It's been a long time since I've drunk to my heart's content. Moreover, it's my good brother, my good sister and Snow Eagle Qingshi and Jingqiu. Zongling's face was completely red as he laughed. This life of mine, Zongling, is worth it, truly worth it. Old brother, I can't take it anymore. I'll be the first to leave. Following the laughter, Zongling's body began to dissipate. Every bit of his divine power was disintegrating and collapsing. Hua! Just like that, he completely dissipated. Wait for me, Tong San shouted. It's time to go. Mo Yang also put down her wine cup. Ayu. Dongbo Lai looked at his wife beside him. In this life, I'm very lucky to have you by my side. Me too. Mo Yang smiled, her eyes filled with love. Dongbo Qingshi sat there and also smiled. Father, mother, Uncle Tong, let's go together. The road will be lively. Brother, let's go. Don't be sad, we're really happy. Hua hua hua. Tong San's drunken body began to dissipate. Dongbo Lai and Mo Yang held each other's hands and looked at each other. Dongbo Qingshi also smiled at Dongbo Shuang. They no longer suppressed the collapse of their souls, allowing it to begin to collapse. Every bit of divine power was collapsing, and all of them were dissipating into the void. Dongbo Shuang, who was holding a wine cup, watched silently. Little Shirtu, father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, you're all gone. You're all gone. Dongbo Shuang's eyes flickered with tears. He sat there silently, not saying a word. The originally bustling house had now become very quiet. The long table was originally surrounded by a group of people, but now only Dongbo Shuang and his wife were left. The other seats were empty. Jingqiu wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. She could only silently accompany them. Silence. Dongbo Shuang sat there silently for a long time. He didn't know what he was thinking. His mind seemed to be muddled and empty. Suddenly, waves of pain engulfed his entire body, engulfing his soul, causing Dongbo Shuang's heart to feel very uncomfortable. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his hand and held it tightly. Dongbo Shuang turned his head. His wife, Jingqiu, was looking at him with concern. You still have us? Jingqiu looked at him. Chapter 791. Dongbo Shuang held onto his wife's hand. That's right, he still had them. But his wife had cultivated for a very long period in her previous life. She had cultivated for more than 2 billion years in the Devil Mountain cosmos. Yet she was stuck at the stage 4 world deity bottleneck, and could not transcend. If she could not transcend, her soul would dissipate and her body would die. In the following years, Dongbo Shuang's black-robed avatar had always been cultivating at the starting ground. As for his true body, he would think of ways to help his wife and son. He would obtain some rare cultivation scriptures and cosmos treasures. He had even deliberately arranged for his wife and son to explore some historical remains while he guided them in the dark. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, it had been 1 billion years since Dongbo Shuang became a ruler. Within the cultivator cosmos, Dongbo Shuang's status was becoming more and more stable. In the current cosmos deity demon list created by Primal Master, the first was Blood Blade, the second was Monarch Dongbo, the third was Purgatory Ruler, and the fourth was Monarch Green. Ha ha ha, Snow Eagle. You think you can injure me with this move? On a great land amidst the starry sky, 2 figures were currently facing each other. One was the crimson-robed Bloodblade, and the other was the white-robed Dongbo Shuang. This land was personally refined by Bloodblade as an ordinary cultivation ground. Currently, in the entire cosmos, only Dongbo Shuang could spar with him. Even if it was just a spar, the two of them had to control their strength. They could only display the laws and profound mysteries and compete with each other. They did not dare to use their full strength. The Walker's hidden secret had long been pushed to the 20th level. Such strength was something Dongbo Shuang did not dare to casually display within the cosmos. Bloodblade was originally amazing. After stepping into the Void God realm for so many years, his strength had become even more unfathomable. Master, don't be too pleased with yourself. I wonder who it was that got kicked by me last time. Dongbo Shuang teased. The two of them were purely sparring and competing in terms of techniques. Because they had 3 chaos-grade absolute arts, Shadowless Heaven's Net, 3,000 incarnations, and Divine Light Scripture. In addition to the large number of precious manuals left behind by the Primogenita Devil Mountain, Dongbo Shuiying's battle techniques were also extremely profound and powerful. Previously, he had relied on his illusionary realm and 3,000 incarnations to cause Bloodblade to suffer a loss. Of course, the Bloodblade forbade the use of all formations. They were only allowed to use laws of profound mysteries, which was why they were at a disadvantage. Bloodblade said calmly, "That was because I was careless." If he were to use his full strength, he did not know how far he could push his teacher. Ultimately, his strongest technique was still the Walker's hidden secret. But his teacher's strongest technique was still the Hex system. Furthermore, it would be even more amazing once he used his Void God energy. "Teacher," Dongbo Shuiying said, "there's a matter that I have to request of teacher." "Haha, currently other than me, no one is your opponent in the cosmos. You have something to request of me?" Bloodblade chuckled, "Say it. I hope that teacher can help protect my loved ones." Dongbo Shuiying said, "You want me to help protect them?" Bloodblade felt puzzled. "What about you?" This disciple of his was a ruler and had 3 bodies. "I am preparing to leave the cosmos," Dongbo Shuiying said. "I'm going to enter the primal chaos void." "Enter the primal chaos void?" Bloodblade was startled. "How can you enter without becoming a void god?" Dongbo Shuiying nodded. "I have a way." Gu Qianluo relied on the primal chaos flying ship to travel through the primal chaos void. "I have my own way too." He had thought about it for a very long time. The departure of his father, mother, Uncle Zong, Uncle Tong, and his little brother had indeed stimulated him, because they were his loved ones. During the recent 1 billion years, he had been helping his wife Jing Qiu and his son in hopes that they could transcend. But transcending was too difficult. Dongbo Shuiying could only provide external help. In the end, he still had to rely on himself to break through. 1 billion years had passed, yet his wife Jing Qiu had yet to break through. Dongbo Shuiying was afraid that day would come. He could not accept such an outcome. Cultivation, what was it for? Becoming powerful? Unparalleled? Ever since Dongbo Shuiying was young, he had cultivated for his family. If his loved ones were not around, what was the point of cultivating to become stronger? Even if he was alive, he would just be a walking corpse. Maybe other rulers and experts had once felt the pain of losing their loved ones. But over the long years, these experts had gradually placed their focus on cultivation. But Dongbo Shuiying could not do it. Perhaps there might be a day when he focused on cultivation over time, so that he could forget about his loved ones. But that path was not what he wanted. If he stayed in the cultivator cosmos, there would be no dangers, no fortuitous encounters, and no experts. His improvement speed would be very slow. He could only walk out and enter a vaster world. Only then would he be able to grow even faster. Moreover, he would be able to obtain more treasures and external items that could aid him in cultivation. This would greatly increase the chances of Jing Qiu and the rest transcending. "Are you really going to head out?" Bloodblade asked. "Amen." Dongbo Shuiying nodded. "Where to?" Bloodblade asked. 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Dongbo Shuiying replied. "Are you still planning to return?" Bloodblade asked. He was different from Dongbo Shuiying. The witchcraft system researched the myriad of things. He was not in a rush and patiently cultivated. He would only leave when the Cosmos epoch was about to end. Moreover, he wanted to leave with his clansmen. He could not leave as he pleased. "Before the end of the Cosmos epoch, I will return," Dongbo Shuiying replied. "According to my census, this Cosmos epoch should have about 1,360 billion years left." Bloodblade said. "I will return within 1 trillion years." Dongbo Shuiying said. 1 trillion years? A very long time. Only with sufficient time would Dongbo Shuiying have the confidence to find treasures that could allow his family to transcend. As for his family's lifespan, if there was no hope of breaking through, he could enter the Eden world to continue living. Within the Eden world, time was maintained at an extremely slow speed. It was not difficult to slow it down to 1/10,000th of a second. To Dongbo Shuiying, the energy consumed was not considered much. His wife and son had spent 100 million years within the Eden world. 1 trillion years might have passed in the outside world. By the time he returned, the situation would be completely different. It would not be like this, helplessly watching as they approached the end of their lifespans. You are the ruler, yet you want to leave the cosmos? Bloodblade shook his head. The primal chaos void is extremely dangerous. I understand. Dongbo Shuiying nodded. The Void Walker inheritance had long since informed him of the information from the outside world. Why do you not cultivate within the cosmos until the end of the cosmos epoch? With your comprehension ability, you might not be any weaker than the ancestor devil. Bloodblade said. When that time comes, there will be very few who can threaten you. For my family, Dongbo Shuiying said. Bloodblade was startled. Family? A figure appeared in the depths of his memories. It had been too long. Back then, it was because of the relationship between Dongbo Shuiying and his wife that he made an exception and accepted him as a disciple. I understand. Bloodblade nodded. Back then, he had tried all sorts of methods to allow his wife to become a stage 1 world deity. In the end, his wife's soul had dissipated and she had died. If only his wife could become a stage 4 world deity, he might have done everything he could to allow his wife to transcend. He understood Dongbo Shuiying's thoughts. Thus he did not stop him. Chapter 792. Within the grass hut in the starting ground, the violet-robed Dongbo Shuiying opened his eyes. He had been cultivating here for the past billion years. Looking around, he was incomparably familiar with the interior of the grass hut. He lightly shook his head with a smile. It is time to leave. He stood up and walked to the door. Pushing open the wooden door, he saw a white-haired old man seated cross-legged outside. This made Dongbo Shuiying sigh inwardly. This white-haired old man had been guarding outside the door for as long as he cultivated. Senior, Dongbo Shuiying said. Dongbo Shuiying, why did you come out? The white-haired old man was slightly startled. I am preparing to take the ruler rank trial. Dongbo Shuiying said. Before leaving the cosmos, he wanted to take the final trial. If he could pass it, there might be some gifts left behind by forefather Tianyu that would give him a pleasant surprise. It might even help his wife and children. The white-haired old man was startled. You are going to take the ruler rank trial now? Dongbo Shuiying, I have to remind you that the ruler rank trial is the final and most difficult trial in the starting ground. The moment you pass it, you will become the core golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Great Void Heaven Temple will also nurture you with all their might. But correspondingly, the difficulty of the trial will be extremely high. In the 7-star oceanic sacred world, the Great Void Heaven Temple has a fixed number of 10 golden-robed disciples. Every time there is a great battle, a large number of violet-robed disciples will challenge the trial. Only the strongest 10 will become the core golden-robed disciples. Every single golden-robed disciple can surpass a realm and kill a void god at the ruler realm. Oh, Dongbo Shuiying was startled. A ruler surpassing a realm and killing a void god? One had to know that there was a huge gap between true god and void god. Even though Dongbo Shuiying thought highly of himself, and even cultivated the Void Walker system. And the Void Walker system was a system that gave him a huge advantage in the early stages. He only felt that he could fight against a new void god. He did not dare think of killing a void god as a ruler. The Great Void Heaven Temple has many ordinary sovereigns, over 100 violet-robed disciples, and a fixed number of 10 gold-robed disciples. No matter how monstrous the sovereigns are, they will always be the 10 strongest. The white-haired old man said. Because you were born in the cosmos, you have passed the test of the starting ground. If you pass and become a golden-robed disciple, then you can temporarily enjoy the various benefits of being a golden-robed disciple. However, once you reach the 7-star oceanic sacred world, there will be an internal challenge every billion years. You must participate in it. If you can't get into the top 10, You will be demoted to a purple-clothed disciple. Dongbo Shuang nodded lightly. Also, because this is not the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even if you become a golden-clothed disciple, you will only be able to enjoy a portion of the benefits of being a golden-clothed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The white-haired old man said. Of course, you will be able to enjoy those benefits once you go to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Firstly, in the cosmos, the cultivation resources are inferior to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Secondly, the benefits obtained would be relatively weaker. Therefore, the difficulty of the test was lower than the one in the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Over there, it was a competition between disciples. As for the starting ground, it has prepared a fixed opponent for you. As long as you kill it, you will become a golden-clothed disciple. Kill it? Who is it? Dongbo Shuang asked. A void god. A slightly weaker void god. The white-haired old man said. The golden-clothed disciples in the 7-star oceanic sacred world can kill ordinary void gods. This kind of extremely weak void god is much easier to kill. But no matter what, it is still a void god. I advise you to cultivate for a while more. Your cultivation period is still too short. The white-haired old man advised. Dongbo Shuang was not confident anymore. Killing a slightly weaker void god? And the difficulty had been lowered? He felt that the golden-clothed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple was much stronger than that Gu Qianluo. Gu Qianluo was also one of the sacred sons under the Ancestor Bone Throne, though he was clearly weaker. The most dazzling expert in the laws and profound mysteries system was indeed terrifying. I still want to try, Dongbo Shuang said. Try. You only have a single chance. If you fail, you will be chased out. The white-haired old man advised again. There's no need to say any more. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, he would leave this cosmos after the battle. The white-haired old man saw that he could not persuade Shuang, and could only helplessly say, all right, I'll bring you over. You are truly too confident. Under the guidance of the white-haired old man, Dongbo Shuang entered a vast space. This space was filled with black soil. This is a slightly weaker void god puppet, refined by Forefather. The white-haired old man said. It is completely an imitation of a real void god. After killing it, it will undergo incubation and 3 days later, it will be revived. Naturally, you just have to kill it. It is a life form that lives in the primal chaos void, called the 100 Leading Howls. You might not have heard of it before, but you have to be careful. Don't be defeated right from the start. I am still looking forward to the birth of a golden-clothed disciple. Dongbo Shuang felt his heart move. 100 Leading Howls? It was recorded in the large amount of information within the Voidwalker inheritance. Then I'll let it out, the white-haired old man said. Clearly, his attitude towards Dongbo Shuang was much closer. The black soil began to tremble, and a huge creature began to emerge from within. After all, it was a life form that lived in the primal chaos void, and its body was naturally huge. It had many colorful tentacles, and every tentacle was very long. At the center of its body, there were many huge heads. Every head had a single horn, a single eye, and a huge bloody mouth. Ho! The 100 heads roared at the same time, causing the surrounding void to shatter. As it shattered, countless shockwaves formed in the distance, sweeping towards Dongbo Shuang. It loved to roar, but the shockwaves produced by its roar were not that threatening. Rulers with weaker bodies could not withstand it and die. But to Dongbo Shuang, who had cultivated the walker's hidden secret to the 20th level, he completely disregarded it. He was clear that the true power of this 100 Leading Howls had not been revealed yet. After the roar, the 100 Leading Howls seemed to have become much more comfortable. Only then did it turn all its heads towards the direction of Dongbo Shuang. Every single eye was staring at Dongbo Shuang, and an unseen spiritual shockwave came crushing down on him. But regardless of whether it was the complete walker's hidden secret inheritance in his soul or the godlight scripture, Dongbo Shuang was able to disregard this spiritual shockwave. The single eye that formed a spiritual shockwave was merely a natural shockwave produced by an existence with a higher level of life, the void god. It was not its true technique. Hong, the entire space suddenly turned dark. The 100 heads of the 100 leading howls opened their bloody mouths at the same time. Every single mouth spurted out a black fog. The dark space and the black fog began fusing together. Even though, according to the information from the Voidwalker inheritance, I should entice it to spurt out more poisonous fog and make it weaker, increasing my chances of winning. But let's give it a try first and see if I can kill it directly. Dongbua Xueying knew that the golden-robed disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple could transcend realms and kill void gods. His heart was filled with fighting spirit. If others could do it, he should be able to do it too. Wang, the violet-robed Dongbua Xueying, remained standing there. At this moment, it was just an incarnation of his. His true body had stealthily entered the mirage world and executed the void evasive maneuver, directly arriving in front of the head of the void god, 100 leading howls. Chapter 793. The 20th level of Walker's hidden secret made Dongbua Xueying's void evasive maneuver extremely formidable. He could move stealthily to the side of the enemy. Adding on the concealment of the mirage world, it was even more formidable. At least, the 100 leading howls did not discover him. A silver spear suddenly appeared from nothingness. It pierced towards the eye of one of the heads of the 100 leading howls. The spear was like a blurred shadow. It was too fast and too sudden. But being at the void god level, the 100 leading howls could still instinctively move its head. The spear that was originally piercing towards the eye had pierced into the face of that head. Its skin was extremely tough. It was born with many tiny vein patterns, causing Dongbua Xueying to feel as if his spear was piercing into nothingness. Furthermore, there were all sorts of chaotic energy guiding it. Pooh! A small part of its face was pierced through. Its skin was broken. As the spear was pulled out, black blood splattered. Roar! The 100 leading howls roared even more violently, and the bloody mouths of the 100 heads spat out a poisonous fog. The poisonous fog combined with the surrounding darkness domain to corrode and destroy everything in its path. The disguised incarnation in the distance could not withstand it, and was directly dissolved. The power of this domain even invaded the mirage world. Even though there is a huge realm gap between true God and void God, I have reached the 20th level of Walker's hidden secret. My strength is sufficient to threaten void god life. Even though the first spear was just to check its strength without using any killing moves, even if I did, I would at most injure it. Within the mirage world, Snow Eagle looked at the 100 leading howls. He could not help but shake his head inwardly. The intelligence isn't fake. This 100 leading howls might be foolish, but to kill it, I have to force it to spit out more poisonous fog, causing its strength to fall. Only then can I kill all of its heads. The way to kill the 100 leading howls was to destroy all of its heads. This was considered relatively simple. Some powerful void gods like Bloodblade, who specialized in researching the myriad existences witchcraft system, would transform their bodies to become extremely powerful. They could be said to have an undying body, and their survival capabilities were much stronger than that of the 100 leading howls. The world was dark. Poisonous fog pervaded everywhere. The 100 leading howls floated in the sky. Countless tentacles enveloped everywhere. Its 100 heads swept across the place, yet it did not continue spitting out poisonous fog. Dongbua Xueying appeared. However, his body was faintly discernible. He could feel the terrifying pressure from the dark domain outside. This pressure was enough to kill Monarch Green and the Purgatory ruler. After all, the bodies of Monarch Black and the others were weaker than the 11th level of the Walker's hidden secret. You think you can kill me with this? Dongbua Xueying laughed out loud. Instantly, countless blood-colored ripples appeared around him. The blood-colored ripples spread out in all directions. Each ripple was like a silk thread. Countless blood-colored ripples crisscrossed, as if they were a single entity, attacking in all directions. Slaughter Domain. His Tao of Slaughter and Tao of Ripple had long reached the ruler realm. Moreover, he had comprehended the chaos great absolute art, Shadowless Heaven's Net. He had fused some of the ripple manipulation methods into the Slaughter Domain, causing the might of the Slaughter Domain to skyrocket. Although the Slaughter Domain was trying its best to break through, it was still shattered by the suppression of the surrounding darkness domain. Void. Dongbui Shui Ying also had the ability to control the void, and the might of the void manipulation at the 20th level was equally terrifying. Hong. The void energy fused perfectly with the slaughter domain, suppressing everything in all directions. Hong Hong Hong, the blood-colored ripple domain was doing its best to attack in all directions, while the darkness domain was continuously suppressing it, causing the slaughter domain to be maintained at a range of 50 kilometers. Who would have thought that even with the fusion of the slaughter domain and the void energy, I am still at a disadvantage in a clash of domains? Dongbui Shui Ying thought. The gap between a ruler and a void god is ultimately too big. The white-haired old man, who was watching the battle by the side, was startled. A ruler could actually clash with a void god using his domain. Even though it was a slightly weaker void god, it was still amazing. Die for me. The 100 leading howls roared out in an unknown language. Nevertheless, Dongbui Shui Ying understood what the other party meant the moment he heard it. The 100 leading howls continued roaring out poisonous fog. As the dark void and the poisonous fog fused together, it seemed to become stronger. Furthermore, chi-chi-chi sounds could be heard as it strangely corroded Dongbui Shui Ying's slaughter domain. The poisonous fog can corrode my domain? Dongbui Shui Ying felt fear inwardly. This little technique is useless against me. Dongbui Shui Ying was still laughing, provoking the other party. When the 100 leading howls turned into an illusion and charged over with a large number of tentacles, Dongbui Shui Ying would rely on the mirage world and void teleportation to escape. He provoked the other party time and time again, so that the 100 leading howls could not touch him. Occasionally, Dongbui Shui Ying would even use his incarnations to sneak an attack. He would even use his darts to sneak an attack. He would even use his true body to sneak an attack. But every time he did so, he would use part of his strength to prevent the 100 leading howls from detecting him. These sneak attacks could barely break the skin of the 100 leading howls, but it was sufficient to make them even more berserk. This weak ruler could actually escape so well. Since it could not chase after this enemy, it would spit out more poisonous fog in hopes of using the domain to trap the enemy. The white-haired old man had been observing the battle from the side. He watched as the 100 leading howls gradually weakened after spitting out more poisonous fog. Dongbui Shui Ying, who had been hiding his strength all this while, finally made sure that he could kill the 100 leading howls with sneak attacks. Only then did he unleash his full strength and execute his wind ripple path. His attacks were clearly much stronger than before. After successfully killing one of the 100 leading howls' heads, the 100 leading howls finally regained its senses. This damnable ruler was actually hiding his strength. At this time, the countless tentacles of the 100 leading howls also started to defend with all their might. However, Dongbui Shui Ying's movement technique was too powerful. Although killing the heads became more difficult, it was still possible if he spent a little more time. Time and time again, he launched sneak attacks and killed the heads with great difficulty. When all the heads were killed, the corpse of the 100 leading howls fell from the sky. At that moment, Dongbui Shui Ying heaved a sigh of relief. This battle lasted for 2 whole days. 90% of the time was spent killing the heads, because it took a long time to kill each head. You won. The white-haired old man chuckled as he looked at Dongbui Shui Ying. But you should understand that if not for Master giving this 100 leading howls puppet an order to kill you with all its might, it would have been much harder. If it were an ordinary battle, it would have been much harder for you to induce it to spit out so much poisonous fog. Furthermore, it would have long escaped with all its might when it discovered that something was amiss. This region of space is too small, and it can't escape at all. I understand. Dongbui Shui Ying nodded. Because this was a trial. That was why the puppet, the 100 leading howls, had long received the order to kill the ruler, who came to take the trial. That was why it was so easily lured out of the poisonous fog. Fortunately, I have the intelligence beforehand. Otherwise, it would be much harder for me to win. This is still a slightly weaker void god. Dongbui Shui Ying had some understanding of himself. No matter what, I am still a void god. Being able to reach this stage means that I have the strength to fight against those of a higher realm. If I want to reach the strength of those golden-robed disciples in the seven-star oceanic sacred world, I still have to improve further. He cultivated the Void Walker system, yet it was so difficult for him to pass through the trial. He should not look down on other cultivators. That grass house at the center, that is where Forefather once stayed for a long time. It is also a place that only rulers can enter after passing through the trial. The white-haired old man said. Amen. Dongbo Shuang pushed open the wooden door and entered. He stayed for a long time before coming out. When he came out, he was still wearing a golden robe. His eyes were filled with slight disappointment. The benefits of being a golden-robed disciple were huge. It had broadened his horizons. They treated the golden-robed disciples with great importance and care. Not any less than how Voidwalker Guqi treated his inheritors. After all, Voidwalker Guqi was a lone ranger, and did not know how to teach disciples. Instead, the Great Void Heaven Temple was more well-rounded. It's a pity that I did not manage to help Jing Qiu and Yu. Dongbo Shuang was slightly disappointed. Actually thinking about it, it was natural. The Great Void Heaven Temple would naturally help golden-robed disciples. Why would they help a stage 4 world deity transcend? What void god weapon do you need? The white-haired old man chuckled. Spear. Dongbo Shuang said. There are only 2 spears. I'll bring them over for you to choose. The white-haired old man said. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Weapons were external objects. What was truly important was what he had obtained back in the grass house. Black Fog Sea, Dongbo Monarch residence. There were very few who knew about his departure from the cosmos. Even his good friend Qi Qiubai, Paragon Huacheng, senior apprentice brother Huiming, Qi Hualaozu, and the rest, Dongbo Shuang only told them, I have an important matter to attend to and will only return after a long time. As for where he was going, he did not say. However, he did tell his wife and children. Their family of 4 was currently walking together within Monarch Dongbo residence. Regarding Dongbo Shuiying's departure from the cosmos, his son, Dongbo Yu, had strongly objected. I can transcend by myself. Father, there's no need for you to risk your life. Even Jing Qiu objected at the start. Snow Eagle, we've been together for many years. Even if I die in the end, I'll be satisfied. There's no need for you to risk your life for me. Dongbo Shuang, however, did not waver at all. Jing Qiu and Yu were able to face death calmly, and did not want him to take the risk. How could he watch as all of this happened, without putting in any effort? He could not do it. With Dongbo Shuiying's temperament, Jing Qiu and Dongbo Yu knew that they could not persuade him otherwise. They could only accept it, and cherish their days together. I'll definitely return before this cosmos epic ends. Dongbo Shuang laughed. Jing Qiu, Dongbo Yu, and Dongbo Qingyao were all worried. It was even more dangerous outside. I'm a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. I won't die so easily. Dongbo Shuang laughed. He had already told his wife and son about the existence of the Great Void Heaven Temple. However, he told them to keep it a secret. Alright, it's time to go. Dongbo Shuang said. At this moment, 2 other figures appeared. They were the other 2 bodies. The 3 bodies instantly fused into one. After leaving the cosmos, without the protection of the cosmos, one would be cleansed by the laws of the entire primal chaos void. One would need to have a complete life in order to survive in the primal chaos void. Therefore, when Gu Qianluo was killed, it was a true death. That was why Gu Qianluo felt so much despair. Who? With a single step, he appeared in the air above the Dongbo Monarch residence. Jing Qiu, Dongbo Yu, and Dongbo Qingyao all raised their heads. Another figure appeared in the air. It was Bloodblade, who had been waiting in the surroundings. Snow Eagle, be careful. Leave the cosmos matters to me. Bloodblade said. He knew the route to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. He knew that it was a long and dangerous journey. However, after knowing that his disciple had become a golden-robed disciple, he had some confidence in his disciple. Amen. Dongbo Shuang waved his hand, causing a crack to appear. Beyond the crack was the vast primal chaos void. Dongbo Shuang turned back to look at his wife, son and daughter. He had left behind everything that could be left behind. I'll be back. Dongbo Shuang thought. He then smiled at his family. Following that, south, he directly flew out along the crack in the cosmos membrane. This scene startled Bloodblade slightly. He actually entered the primal chaos void with his body? Usually only void gods could do it, yet a ruler could do it too? This disciple of mine has indeed met with extraordinary opportunities. Dongbua Shuang flew into that vast primal chaos void. The cosmos membrane gradually healed. Jingqiu, Dongbua Yu and Dongbua Qingyao looked up. Jingqiu's eyes were already filled with tears. She had always been afraid that Dongbua Shuang would not return. I'll wait for you to return, Jingqiu thought. Chapter 794. As Dongbua Shuang flew into the primal chaos void, he could sense an invisible law sweeping past him. He knew that this was the law of the primal chaos void. After entering this place, one would no longer be protected by the cosmos. Only life forms with perfect souls would be able to survive in the primal chaos void. Of course, they would also have to be able to withstand the vile environment of the primal chaos void. Chi. The primal chaos void looked like a piece of nothingness, but it was actually a mixture of countless energies. Some of them were terrifyingly destructive, and were extremely cold. Just this coldness alone could easily freeze some rulers to death. However, Dongbua Shuang was like a fish in water in such an environment. After all, he was a void walker, and could survive in the primal chaos void after reaching the 11th level. Now that he was at the 20th level, it was naturally easier for him. Cosmos. Dongbua Shuang turned around and looked behind him. It was a boundless existence, the cosmos. This was his hometown cosmos. It was huge, but it also protected the countless life forms within. Compared to the primal chaos void, the cosmos was much safer. In this vast primal chaos void, it is truly hard to tell the direction. Dongbua Shuang looked at the cold primal chaos void and released his senses towards the void. Instantly his senses spread out. In terms of range, it was probably 100 times the size of the cosmos. With such a huge range, he could clearly sense that the formless energy within the primal chaos void was moving extremely slowly. It was as though the entire primal chaos void had a core. With that core as the origin, the entire primal chaos void was expanding in all directions. It was expanding continuously. The ancient saint world is over there. Dongbua Shuang nodded his head slightly. Based on the direction of the primal chaos void's expansion, he was able to deduce the location of the ancient saint world. Ancient saint world, it was also one of the 5 great sacred worlds. According to the legends, the ancient saint world was the origin of everything. Later on, the strongest existences in the ancient saint world, who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation, had engaged in a terrifying war. This war caused the ancient saint world to explode, and the remaining ancient saint world was probably only 100th of the original ancient saint world. It was also because of that war that the primal chaos void began to expand in all directions. The countless shattered pieces formed universes, primal chaos lands that were smaller than universes, and even smaller ones that were no longer suitable for life. As for those existences who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation, they also dispersed and began to open up new sacred worlds. However, over the long years, due to the pinnacle of cultivation, there were still sacred worlds that were destroyed. Currently, there were only 5 sacred worlds. The ancient sacred world and the 7-star oceanic sacred world were among them. Existences who have cultivated to the final realm are truly terrifying. Shuang sighed inwardly. They are existences who could destroy the sacred world. I have obtained an absolute art that can destroy a sacred world. There was indeed an absolute art currently existing in the mind of Shuang. This was a temple protection absolute art that he was qualified to acquire after becoming a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Heaven Ying Saint World of the Ying Sect, Dynasty Ying Temple. Dongbua Shuang chose 13 Swords of Armageddon. Out of the 3 palace guarding absolute arts, it was the only one that was more compatible with Dongbua Shuang's laws of profound mysteries. This was because this palace guarding absolute art belonged to the Slaughter Dao, The 1-3 apocalyptic swords was created by the palace master of the Great Void Heaven Temple, Forefather Tianyu. Extremely terrifying and powerful. The first sword was so profound and complex that not even 1 in 100 hegemons could learn it. Those who could learn it were those with great comprehension abilities. The moment they grasped it, with this sword technique, they could transcend realms and fight against ordinary void gods with their ruler bodies. In other words, with just his swordsmanship alone, he would be able to rival the current Dongbue Shuiying. The main reason why Dongbue Shuiying was so strong was because of the Void Walker system. His self-created windstorm path was far inferior to the first sword. The second sword was even more terrifying. Rulers had almost no hope of grasping it. In the history of the Great Void Heaven Temple, there was only one Tao of sword genius who grasped it at the ruler realm. Others who comprehended this palace guarding absolute art could not even comprehend it at the void god origin birth realm. One could see how difficult it was. That Tao of sword genius relied on the second sword at the ruler realm to sweep across all void gods at the origin birth realm, easily killing ordinary void gods. He could even fight against those at the void unity realm. Naturally, other than that person, there was no one else who could grasp the second sword at the ruler realm. This sword technique was stronger with each sword. The final 13th sword was also worthy of its name. It could shatter a sacred world into pieces. Being in existence at the final realm of the laws and profound mysteries system. Forefather Tian, you had created 3 palace guarding absolute arts. He was so powerful that he was relatively famous across the 5 great sacred worlds. Others like Ancestor Bone, who were similarly at the final realm of cultivation, were weaker by an entire level. According to the cultivation realm, void gods were split into 3 levels. Even if he could survive, he would usually be delayed. Just as Dongbue Shuiying was trying to comprehend the palace's ultimate technique, the vast chaotic void in front of him suddenly twisted. Not good. Dongbue Shuiying's face changed drastically. He hurriedly tried to use the void evasive maneuver to escape. However, the surrounding void energy was completely distorted, and he couldn't control it at all. At this moment, he was like a tiny ant trapped in a whirlpool. No matter how he struggled, it was futile. As for flying, the surrounding void energy was distorted, making it difficult for him to even move. Looks like we're in trouble. Dongbue Shuiying did not panic at all. Just like how the ocean would have tides and whirlpools, the void of chaos would have some anomalies as well. However, with the Voidwalker's survivability, most of them would be able to survive. It was just that sometimes, they would find themselves in a predicament. For example, being sucked into a certain sealed void. Everything was possible. The surrounding primal chaos void, which could be filled by 1,000,000 cosmoses, was distorting. Everything was collapsing towards the center. And at the center of the collapse, a colorful halo could be seen. That is, Dongbue Shuiying was also following the collapse of the primal chaos void. He was being sucked towards the center. The closer he got, the clearer he could see. At the center, there were many layers of colorful spatial folds. It was as if different spaces were being folded and connected here. Void corridor. Dongbue Shuiying recognized it. Void corridor. It was a resonance formed between different regions of the vast primal chaos void. It was collapsing and connecting with one another. Many regions that were extremely far away from one another were connected at this moment. There were some powerful cultivators who could form a resonance, even though they were separated by a great distance, allowing them to travel from one location to another. Even if the distance between 2 sacred worlds was far, they could travel there instantaneously. But to achieve this, one had to have a harsh requirement on their combat power and cultivation system. For instance, the laws and profound mysteries system, the ancestor mother religion system, and other cultivation systems could not achieve this even if they reached the pinnacle. Every system had its own specialties. Only unique cultivation systems, that had reached an extremely high level could achieve this. And now, such a scene had appeared naturally in the primal chaos void. I'd rather it not appear. Dongbui Shuang might be startled, but he felt helpless and uneasy at the same time. Void corridor. It might send him to the boundary of the sacred world, but at the same time, it might send him into a predicament. It might even send him into a terrifying place. It depended on his luck. I hope I'm not too unlucky. Dongbui Shuang was holding onto a talisman. Being a golden-robed disciple, he had 3 life-saving talismans. The Great Void Heaven Temple placed great importance on the safety of the golden-robed disciples. If they met with a predicament they could not resist, the life-saving talismans would greatly increase their chances of survival. Hua! The void distorted and collapsed, causing the incomparably tiny Shuang to similarly distort and collapse into that colorful void corridor. Dongbui Shuang could only feel the surrounding space being squeezed and pulled. The flow of time was also changing strangely. His surroundings were filled with colors. Dongbui Shuang could not control his body and could only drift along with the flow. He was praying in his heart. I shouldn't be that unlucky. I should reach another location normally, and the chances of me falling into a predicament should be very low. He was consoling himself. The void corridor, which had been distorting and unstable, finally collapsed. Shuang, who was stuck in one of the regions, along with the collapse of a void fold, had regained its normal primal chaos void. The surrounding void gradually regained its normalcy. The originally distorted primal chaos void gradually calmed down and regained its calm. Dongbui Shuang looked in all directions with slight astonishment. It was a vast expanse. The cosmos that he could barely see in one direction was no longer there. I'm no longer at my previous position. Dongbui Shuang did not find it strange. If he could return to his original position after passing through the void corridor, that would be a miracle. The most crucial thing now is to figure out where I am. Dongbui Shuang pondered. Even though he could deduce the direction of the ancient sacred world, it was useless to just know a direction. He had to find a point of reference. Fortunately, the void map left behind by my teacher Guqi is extremely complete. The 5 great sacred worlds are marked out in detail. Let's begin. Dongbui Shuang casually chose a direction before moving through the void. He had already made up his mind before leaving his hometown. After all, there would always be some twists and turns along the way. As long as he was alive, everything would be fine. Amen. Very soon, Dongbui Shuang discovered a huge land in the distant primal chaos void. His eyes brightened. Primal chaos land? The most primitive ancient sacred world had once exploded due to a great war. Some of the fragments had turned into cosmos, and some had turned into smaller primal chaos lands. Naturally, existences at the void god primal chaos realm had the strength to create a primal chaos land. The primal chaos land was sufficient for the life forms within to reproduce and survive, but it was relatively weaker in terms of protection. The cosmos forbade all external void gods from entering, but the primal chaos land did not forbid it, because those who could travel in the primal chaos void were usually at least void gods. Chapter 796. Within the primal chaos land, many life forms were reproducing and cultivating here. Quick. Hurry up. A group of attendants rapidly entered the dark palace hall. There was currently a monster that could barely transform into a humanoid sitting on top of it. He was currently looking downwards. After the group of attendants entered, they waved their hands. At that moment, many cages appeared in the palace hall. Some of the cages had a group of humans, some had a group of beasts, and some had some plant life forms. But there was a common point. All of them were at least at the world deity level, though their strength had been sealed. Master, the food has been sent. These attendants were slightly terrified. Amen. The monster sat on top of it. It opened its mouth. Who? A cage directly flew over. As it flew, it started shrinking before turning into a small that flew into its bloody mouth. After eating it, its abdomen wiggled. The karma is gone. These attendants were all at the ordinary powerful existence level. They could sense that those who entered had lost their karma, and could not help but feel sorrowful. It was just that they did not dare to reveal any strange expressions on their faces. The monster continued eating with ka-cha sounds. Humans, beasts, plants, all sorts of cultivators were swallowed into its stomach. Halfway through eating, he suddenly looked up. There is actually an outsider. So, he immediately teleported through the void and disappeared. These attendants let out a sigh of relief. But they could not help but look outwards. They were powerful existences, and could see through the obstruction of the void to the distant scene. That was a black-robed teenager descending on this primal chaos land. An outsider? A human? The attendants were all excited. Those who roam the primal chaos void are usually void gods. Furthermore, looking at his appearance, those monsters would prefer to maintain their ugly heads and ugly scales, even after turning into a humanoid form. This outsider should be an ordinary cultivator. We have hope. He is here to save us. These attendants looked at each other. They were excited and uneasy at the same time. They had even started spreading the news in the dark. Many powerful existences amongst the cultivators on this primal chaos land received a piece of news. A powerful cultivator had descended from the primal chaos void, and it was possible that he would be fighting with those void monsters. They might be saved. In their hearts, they understood that the chances of them being saved were extremely low, because experts would not easily risk their lives for strangers. At the same time, they knew how frightening these void monsters were. Even if the one who came was a void god, the possibility of him saving them was very low. But no matter how low it was, there was still hope. Their days were dark and hopeless. Now that they could see a glimmer of hope, it was enough to make them look forward to it excitedly. The moment Dong Shuang arrived, he could feel an invisible ripple. Not good, there's an alarm array. I'll be discovered the moment I enter. Dong Shuang understood this. Fortunately, it was only his incarnation that he revealed to the outside world. At this moment, his true body had also released his senses towards the void, instantly enveloping the entire void land. Dong Shuang was puzzled. This primal chaos land had countless ordinary life forms. There were mortals, transcendents, deities, world deities, and even true gods. However, there were actually many world deities, and even true gods being imprisoned. At the same time, the strongest one was actually a group of void creatures. There were a total of 16 void creatures. Oh, there was also a dazzling and vast palace that had an extremely formidable array. Even with his void senses, he could not penetrate through it at all. The void creatures have entered the primal chaos land, and are ruling over this place? Dong Shuang thought. But why are they imprisoning those cultivators? The void creatures were intelligent, and it was not strange for them to occupy a primal chaos land. But most of the time, they would get along well with them. Hoo. The surrounding void rippled, and figures appeared one after another. They were all void creatures that had appeared directly through the void. They had now barely transformed into human forms, and some of their sharp claws, scales, ugly heads, and other special features were still retained. They were all staring at Dong Shuang. Their eyes were emitting light. I've been roaming in the primal chaos void, and happened to pass by this place. That's why I'm here to pay a visit. Dong Shuang chuckled. In his heart, however, he was becoming more alert. After the void creatures become more intelligent, they would usually get along with the cultivators. But when they see me, their gazes seem strange, as if they are looking at prey. Oh, you are here to pay a visit? A total of 6 void creatures appeared. One of them was a tall and thin void creature. You are a ruler, yet you are able to roam the primal chaos void? Are you relying on external objects, or some special movement technique? It isn't good for you to ask about such a secretive matter during our first meeting, right? Dong Shuang frowned. The reason why I am here is because this is a place that has not been marked on my void map. Thus, I would like to ask, where is this place? A ruler brat dares to be so arrogant. Let's eat him. Whoever kills him first will be the one to eat him. These void creatures were already discussing amongst themselves. They did not conceal their thoughts at all. If it was a void god who came, they would still be slightly vigilant. As for a ruler, They were not afraid. Dongbo Shuang felt puzzled inwardly. He could determine that these 6 void creatures in front of him were at the true God ruler realm. Yet they dared to disregard his incarnation? His incarnation was also at the ruler realm. Unless there were other void gods in the dark. Dongbo Shuang immediately thought back to that chain of palaces, which he could not penetrate through. Who? An unfamiliar void creature suddenly appeared by his side. A pair of sharp claws immediately enveloped over, causing the other 6 void creatures, who were still discussing, to become anxious. You actually dared to be the first. This is the region we are in charge of. This is our prey. Whoever kills him first will be the one to eat him. That unfamiliar void creature was entirely black, and its surface was faintly translucent. His pair of translucent claws were extremely sharp too. A spear appeared in the hands of the black-robed Dongbo Shuang. The tip of the spear was covered in a black light. Even though this was just an incarnation, Dongbo Shuang had left behind the most destructive offensive technique of the Voidwalker lineage, termination energy. After all, the incarnation was condensed from energy. It was not as strong as the true body, and could only display some laws and profound mysteries techniques. Pooh! He immediately struck out with his spear. The spear's shaft spun and rolled out. The translucent void creature felt that the spear in front of him was very strange. The spear's shaft was constantly spinning, and the trajectory of the spear's tip was constantly changing. He was not confident that he could block this spear for a moment. Pooh! The tip of the spear instantly pierced 125 holes on the body of the void creature. The destructive power contained in the spear, and the destructive power of the termination energy, instantly caused serious damage to this semi-transparent void creature, with an extremely strong vitality. If it had a weak vitality, it would have died. Dongbo Shuang's hands did not stop. At the same time as he pulled out his spear, he similarly pierced out with his spear. That heavily injured translucent void creature could only cry out, "Save me." At the same time, its body began tunneling into the void. But in terms of control over the void, these void creatures that relied purely on their innate talent could not compare to the Voidwalker Dongbo Shuang. The spear directly pierced through the void, piercing through the body of this void creature once again, creating another 125 holes. This time, this void creature was instantly killed. This caused the other void creatures in the distance to be dumbfounded. Dead. Their comrade died just like that? The first sword of the 13 Armageddon swords is too weak. Logically speaking, I should only be able to pierce through one hole. But I can't even stabilize the spearhead. Under the instantaneous burst of power, the spearhead actually pierced through 125 holes. Dongbo Shuang glanced at the items left behind by the dead void creature. This is my first battle after entering the primal chaos void. The feeling of using the first sword of the 13 Armageddon swords to kill the enemy was much more satisfying than burying his head in cultivation. Some of the powerful existences in the primal chaos land raised their heads and watched nervously. They were yearning, incomparably yearning, hoping for a miracle to happen. Within the chain of palaces that Dongbo Shuang found hard to detect. Within one of the palaces, the black-scaled void creature that was lying in a meditative position breathed out from his nostrils. His cold eyes were currently observing the happenings in the outside world. Trivial matters like guarding and welcoming outsiders were handled by his subordinates. With his status and identity, how could he easily take action? Big brother. Looks like these fellows are still unable to deal with this outsider ruler. I'll go and deal with him. The black-scaled void creature spoke. His voice rumbled and transmitted to a hidden palace in the depths of the chain of palaces. Okay. The deep voice replied. It's been a long time since I ate a ruler. There are too few of them. The black-scaled void creature flew out of his palace with some interest. Chapter 797. The 6 void creatures that originally wanted to surround and attack Dongbo Shuang were currently in a state of panic, because that mysterious black-robed young man had easily disappeared from their vision before sneaking up on them. Furthermore, the power of his spear technique was great. Even though they tried their best to defend against it, they were not his opponent. PFFF PFFF PFFF. The spear spun and rolled out, the tip of the spear instantly piercing the bone armor on the chest of a void creature. The bone armor had natural engravings, causing the spear to barely be able to pierce through it, but this time, 119 holes were instantly pierced through. There is really some improvement. Dongbo Shuang felt joy in his heart. The instantaneous power of this spear is too strong. The spearhead is slightly messy, and I can't perfectly condense all the force into one. The scattered force and the termination energy, attached to the spearhead, could heavily injure the void creatures. If he could perfectly condense the force into one, even if he did not rely on the termination energy, the power of his spear technique could reach another level, allowing him to fight against void gods of a higher realm. Again, this incarnation of Dongbo Shuang did not display his domain, because he wanted to temper his spear technique and learn the first sword of the Great Void Heaven Temple Absolute Art, the 13 Apocalyptic Swords. By then, coupled with the huge advantage of the Void Walker system, killing ordinary void gods would be easy for him. But the prerequisite was that he had to learn the first sword. Not good. Dongbo Shuang suddenly felt his heart jolting. His true body could sense the void, and he discovered a terrifying existence coming out from that group of palaces that he could not see. Following that, the other party tore through the void and arrived here. That terrifying aura was unquestionably that of a void god. A group of trash. A voice boomed in the surrounding void. An enormous black-scaled creature coiled and coiled appeared. The remaining 5 void creatures were both startled and delighted. One of their leaders had arrived. They were saved. The black-robed Dongbo Shuang stood in midair with his spear in hand. He looked at the coiled black-scaled creature in front of him. Judging by its appearance, there are no records of it in my intelligence reports. It should be a lower-graded void creature. There were many different types of void creatures, and there were differences in their grades. Just like the pioneer of the Void Walkers, he was said to be the pinnacle, born to be the leader of countless void creatures. But Dongbo Shuang did not dare to be careless. Even if they were of a lower grade, void creatures had an advantage in terms of their bodies as compared to other life forms in the cosmos. Furthermore, those who broke through the bottleneck to the void god realm were not easy to deal with. Sovereign. There was a trace of interest in the black-scaled creature's cold eyes. He spoke with a booming voice. Your strength is not bad. You are much stronger than the idiots of this chaos land. I will give you a chance. Use your strongest attack. If you can surprise me, I might spare your life. Enslaving the countless lives of the entire primal chaos continent and wantonly devouring them. You have violated a taboo. Dongbo Shuang shouted coldly. Do you know what awaits you if the stronger cultivators find out about this? Haha, many of the surrounding regions have been occupied by us. Why would we be afraid of you cultivators? The black-scaled creature sneered. Shuang was startled when he heard that. Quite a few superpowers believed that wantonly devouring the innocent was a taboo, and the moment it was discovered, they would be killed without mercy. But even amongst the high and unparalleled cosmos gods, there were some extremely wicked cultivators. Furthermore, they were not united. If they were united, the most primitive ancient sacred world would not have exploded because of the Great War. Thus, those who violated the taboo would be killed without mercy. Only a few superpowers were carrying out this taboo. There were also some experts who abhorred evil and followed this taboo. But now many of the surrounding regions had been occupied. This meant that it was not a minority of void creatures who were too mad. Instead, they had formed a superpower with a backer behind them. Brat, do it. If you don't, you won't have the chance anymore. The black-scaled creature said. Hung. The black-robed Dongbo Shuang's expression sunk. At that moment, he released the slaughter domain in all directions with him as the center. This was the fusion of the Tao of Ripple and Tao of Slaughter. Even though his incarnation could not control the void, the power of the slaughter domain was sufficient to cause the expressions of the few remaining void creatures to change. Pung! The body of the black-scaled creature suddenly emitted many circular black ripples. The black ripples easily suppressed the slaughter domain. Too weak. Too weak. In front of a void god, You are still too weak. The black-scaled creature sneered. Dongbo Shuiying was inwardly startled. Such a powerful law domain. He had fought with the 100 leading hells before. The 100 leading hells was indeed a weaker void god chosen by forefather Tianyu. Even though he could not control the void, the pure slaughter domain could not resist at all. If not for the other party restraining himself, he would have been suppressed to death with a single domain. His strength is stronger than the 100 leading howls. This should be considered the strength of an ordinary void god. Dongbo Shuiying thought. Dongbo Shuiying disappeared into the mirage world. He followed the mirage world and closed in on the black-scaled creature. Here. The black-scaled creature was slightly interested. Through the law domain, he discovered that the cultivator was approaching him from another level of the world. This concealment technique is quite formidable. A spear pierced out from nothingness. The spear body revolved as it pierced out. The spearhead was emitting a black light. The black-scaled creature did not resist when he saw that. He allowed the spearhead to pierce into his body. Chi. The spearhead pierced out uncontrollably for a total of 119 times. Yet not a single white spot could be seen on the body of the black-scaled creature. His body is stronger than the 100 leading hells too. Dongbo Shuiying deduced. You are too weak. The black-scaled creature shook his head. Dongbo Shuiying persevered and continued piercing out with his spear. 118 times, 113 times. Those scales that were filled with toughness and had many mysterious inscriptions on the surface were extremely hard to pierce through. Yet it forced Dongbo Shuiying to adjust his spear technique. The black-scaled creature sensed for a moment before shaking his head. So weak. Who? He abruptly extended his claws. Every single claw was as sharp as a saber. The surface of the claw was shrouded in black fog. As it clawed out, it forced its way into the mirage world. Even though its power was weakened within the mirage world, it still landed on the body of the black-robed Dongbo Shuiying. Dongbo Shuiying might be using his spear technique to defend against it, but in the face of this vast power, it was much more terrifying than when his true body was at the 20th level of Walker's hidden secret. His body was instantly disintegrated. Nevertheless, this terrifying power was controlled perfectly. It actually wanted to protect the soul within Dongbo Shuiying's body and capture him alive. You are delusional. The strand of consciousness within the incarnation transmitted a message. Closely following that, it took the initiative to disintegrate. This was after all an incarnation. If he did not take the initiative to disintegrate, the other party would be able to see through him. The moment the incarnation died, the weapons and other treasures were immediately expelled from the mirage world. It was Dongbo Shuiying who took the initiative to give them up. The black-scaled creature shook his head and sneered. So weak. He can't even injure me. Second Commander, you have already stepped into the void god realm. How can a puny ruler compare to you? The other 5 true god ruler void creatures were flattering him. Stepping into the void god realm was an extremely difficult hurdle for void creatures. After all, they were born with the ability to reach the ruler realm. And to reach the void god realm, they had to cultivate. I originally wanted to eat his soul. Who would have thought that he would take the initiative to commit suicide? The black-scaled creature snorted. He then tore through the void and left with a who. This kind of cultivator with a weak body was only attracted to his soul. Quick, let's split the treasures together. Those 5 void creatures immediately began dividing the treasures left behind by the incarnation of Dongbo Shuiying. Of these treasures, some were obtained from the 2 void creatures he killed previously. Dongbo Shuiying did not care about these treasures. He temporarily feigned his death, so as to lower the enemy's guard. But the natives of this primal chaos land, and those powerful existences, who had transcended were watching this battle from afar. Even though they felt that the hope of saving the other party was slim, they were still looking forward to it. Because they had stayed in the darkness for too long. That was a piece of darkness with no hope at all. It's over. He is ultimately a ruler, and is far from being the opponent of that void god monster. The hearts of these powerful existences had completely fallen into a bottomless abyss. The strongest amongst them was only at the Paragon realm. As for the rulers, Their strength had long been sealed and imprisoned. Facing this group of void creatures that came from the primal chaos void, they could not resist at all. The weakest amongst this group of void creatures was a true god ruler, and the strongest was a void god. Void gods against true gods, it was simply a massacre. One had to know that even the extremely precious Voidwalker inheritance could not defeat a void god, after cultivating it to the limit of the ruler realm, the 20th level. One had to cultivate in other systems before it was possible. In the holy ground of the laws and profound mystery system, the Great Void Heaven Temple, only the most dazzling golden-robed disciple with the highest talent could kill a void god. Killing a void god was too rare, and not even 1 in 10,000. Only a holy ground like the Great Void Heaven Temple could barely give birth to a dozen or so such monsters. This cultivator that came from the primal chaos void is still too weak. It's a pity that he has died too. There's no hope. There will never be any hope. These powerful existences felt sullen and unwilling in their hearts. But they were still enduring. Those who could not endure had either committed suicide or sent themselves to their deaths. Those who survived were all silently enduring, hoping that hope would descend upon them in this endless night. Within the Mirage world, the white-robed Dongbua Shueying was currently standing here. He was extremely confident of his concealment techniques, other than the Mirage world, and controlling the void. More importantly, he had 3 survival talismans as a golden-robed disciple. One of the talismans was used to conceal his aura. The moment he concealed his aura, most void gods would only be able to discover him at the primal chaos realm. Very few Unity Realm experts who specialized in scouting could discover him too. But it was practically impossible for ordinary void gods to discover him, unless they had some mysterious treasures. Actually, these void creatures who did not specialize in their realms could be concealed using the Mirage world and controlling the void, much less with the talismans. He is very strong, Dongbua Shueying thought. He is stronger than the 100 leading howls. My incarnation has a weak body. If I were to fight with my true body, the gap in strength between us wouldn't be so exaggerated. With the advantage in the realm and the void god weapon, Dongbua Shueying thought, it shouldn't be a problem for me to fight against him. But the possibility of killing him is slightly lower. Furthermore, I know too little about them. Dongbua Shueying looked in a certain direction. Through the void, he could see a chain of palaces. This chain of palaces was something he could not see through at all. Treasure Spirit, I'll have to rely on you to investigate. Dongbua Shueying transmitted. Master, it's just a small matter. Leave it to me. The Black Gourd Treasure Spirit said confidently. But you have to stay closer to that chain of palaces. As long as you are within my scouting region, I can even clearly see through their combat power. Dongbua Shueying revealed a grin. Very good. Today was the first chapter. Chapter 798. With the help of the life-saving talisman, Dongbua Shueying executed the void evasion. Compared to those void creatures, his execution was much stealthier, as though he was one with the void. The primal chaos land was only so big, but in the blink of an eye, Dongbua Shueying had arrived at the periphery of the chain of palaces. Weapon Spirit, are you able to investigate now? Dongbua Shueying asked. Without knowing anything about the enemy, he did not dare to enter recklessly. That's enough. The entire palace complex is within my detection range. The Black Gourd Treasure Spirit transmitted. Woo, it is fortunate that you did not barge in. There are a total of 3 void god level void creatures within this group of palaces. 3 void gods. Dongbua Shueying felt his heart twitching. The 3 of them are talking about you. Let me listen carefully. The Black Gourd's artifact spirit was silent for a moment before saying, Master, the one who fought with you just now is the 2nd leader. His strength should also be ranked 2nd. 3rd commander and 2nd commander are close to each other. And the great commander's soul is much stronger, though they are both ordinary void gods. Dongbua Shueying pondered silently. The great leader seems to be very concerned about your background. He has already given the order to start investigating the items you left behind. The Black Gourd's artifact spirit said. You're quite cautious. Dongbo Shuang shook his head and smiled. Did you find out what this chaos land is called? You know the name. Only then did he know which part of the void map this chaotic land corresponded to. No one talked about it. The various buildings and items in the palace complex were also unable to determine the name of this primal chaos land. The artifact spirit said helplessly, "Right, master. The three leaders are all swallowing lives. I can tell that they must be practicing the most stupid devouring cultivation system." Devouring type. Dongbo Shui Ying's eyes were filled with anger. The 5 great sacred realms, the vast primal chaos void, and countless universes. There were many different cultivation systems, but there were not many that could lead to the ultimate. After all, in order to reach the final realm, one had to first be verified by a senior. And the number of cosmos gods recorded in history was pitifully few. Naturally, there were not many cultivation systems that led to the final realm. Among them, the simplest system was the devour system. The devour type was to devour everything and fuse it into one's own body. It could devour all kinds of rare treasures, and even the souls of living beings. It could even devour the universe. There were 2 key points to this system. The first was the increasingly complex devouring technique. Devouring a normal life form and devouring a void god weapon naturally required different techniques. The other key was that one had to be able to absorb and convert what one had devoured into their own. This conversion and absorption method was also different for different levels. But from the most basic to the void god unity realm, devour class cultivation techniques were easy to obtain. That was because the creator of the devour class cultivation technique, Jie, had taken the initiative to publicize it. But if one wanted to reach the primal chaos realm, one had to rely on him. Only then would one be able to obtain more profound cultivation techniques. Devour. The easiest way to improve was undoubtedly to devour other cultivators. Therefore, this system produced many great devils, who wantonly devoured blood, and also caused public anger. However, Jie was too strong. Amongst the final realm existences, Jie was vaguely ranked in the top 3. His position was unshakable. That was why the devour class system did not go extinct. Instead, more and more cultivators cultivated this system, especially those void creatures with ordinary comprehension abilities. Many of them cultivated the devour class system. The weak are food for the strong. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. The final realm existences were too far away from him. But his luck was not bad. After all, the Great Void Heaven Temple was very powerful. Currently, there were 2 final realm existences, Forefather Tianyu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master, guarding over the temple. No matter where he was, the moment he announced his name, it was sufficient to intimidate others. I still hope for a miracle. After serving the void creatures, a white-haired young attendant was currently seated in his own small courtyard. He felt dismal in his heart. How long will such days last? The white-haired young attendant thought. He had to maintain a calm expression on his face, for fear of being discovered by the void creatures in the dark. Suddenly, the space beside him distorted, and a black-robed young man appeared in front of him. The white-haired attendant looked at the person in front of him in shock. You aren't. The black-robed young man in front of him was the dominator expert that they saw battling with the void creatures. You really thought that I was dead? Dongbo Shuang laughed and teased. That was just me deceiving those fools. This place has merged with reality and illusion. That void creature that you are serving won't be able to discover you at all. That void creature was also a dominator, but its cultivation realm was very low. With Dongbo Shui Ying's attainments in the Mirage Dao, deceiving a dominator void creature was still a piece of cake. Oh, the white-haired young man nodded his head. His eyes were emitting light as he saw hope. He wasn't worried about being deceived. After all, their current status was that of slaves and food. Those void creatures wouldn't even bother to deceive them. Let me ask you. Dongbo Shuang said. What is the name of this primal chaos land? What is it called? The white-haired young man was startled. He shook his head. I don't know. I've never been out before. I don't even know what the primal chaos land we live in is called in the outside world. Dongbo Shuang frowned. You haven't heard the seniors of your race mention it before? According to his void scouting, the strongest cultivators in the entire primal chaos land, who could still maintain their freedom, were only paragons. As for true god rulers, he had discovered them. However, their powers were sealed and they were imprisoned. I haven't heard of them. The white-haired young man shook his head. However, when he saw the frown on the black-robed young man's face, he couldn't help but say, although I don't know, the rulers should know. But the rulers are all imprisoned. I don't know where they are imprisoned either. The white-haired young man said helplessly. The rulers should know? Dong Buishuang nodded lightly. He chatted with the white-haired young man about many things before breaking free and saying, bear with it for now. I will definitely rescue you. However, I need time. We can wait. When the white-haired young man heard this promise, he was like a drowning man holding onto a piece of wood. He hurriedly nodded in agreement. As long as there was a sliver of hope, they would grab it firmly. Amen. Dong Buishuang nodded, and then his figure completely disappeared. The white-haired young man felt as though he was dreaming. However, his expression quickly regained its calm, and he continued to do his work as a servant. However, deep within his heart, a flame was already burning. This was the flame of hope. Within a cold, gloomy prison, the black-haired man was bound by chains. Even his spine was chained up, and his soul was sealed. The chains were also covered with layers of seals that completely sealed his power. His eyes were gloomy. He had been living in darkness for far too long. Why is it like this? This primal chaos land of ours used to be fine. Why would a large group of void creatures suddenly descend and invade us? Where are the other powerful cultivators? Why did they allow this to happen? The black-haired man's eyes were filled with despair. Based on what he knew, void creatures normally wouldn't dare to do something like this. Because if they stayed for too long, they would be easily discovered, and powerful cultivators would descend to kill these void creatures. However, this group of void creatures had descended for far too long, and no cultivators had ever interfered with them. In fact, based on what he knew, it wasn't just his home primal chaos land. The surrounding regions had also been occupied by void creatures. Becoming their food? Being their slaves? If they want to eat us, they can just eat us. The black-haired man felt boundless sorrow. Even I, a mighty ruler, was treated as a spoil of war and given to a void creature. The majority of rulers had become food reserves for the 3 leaders. Only a few were given to subordinates who had contributed greatly. This black-haired man was one of them. Who will save us? When will these days end? The black-haired man's heart was filled with despair. Who? The black-haired man suddenly felt the void in front of him distorting as a figure appeared. It was a black-robed young man. This caused the black-haired man to feel shocked. He tried to blink his eyes, but there was indeed a black-robed young man standing in front of him. Don't worry. Nobody will know what happened here. Dong Buishuang smiled. Are you here to save us? To save this primal chaos land? The black-haired man hurriedly asked. I will do my best. If nothing unexpected happens, there is an 80% to 90% chance of saving us. Dong Buishuang said. The black-haired man's eyes instantly lit up. Do you know the name of this primal chaos land? Dong Buishuang asked. I know. The black-haired man immediately replied. I heard the emperor mention it before. It is called the Chuntai continent. ***. Chapter 799. Dong Buishuang immediately felt joy in his heart. He began comparing it with the void map that he knew of. The Chuntai Great Land was one of the many continents in the primal chaos void. It was the closest to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World of the 5 great sacred worlds. It would take him roughly 100 million years to reach the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World with his current speed. Eastern Unicorn Sacred World? Dong Buishuang thought. Who would have thought that I would be able to cross such a great distance by entering the void corridor in the primal chaos void and arrive close to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World? It seems that I can only go there first. He did not dare to think about returning to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World temporarily, because it was too far away. The 2 sacred worlds were incomparably far apart. Due to the distance, there would be more dangers along the way. With his current strength, he would have to spend more than a cosmos epoch to return even if his journey was absolutely safe. Such a long journey was sufficient to kill him. Hence, it was better for him to focus on improving his strength. The stronger he was, the easier it would be for him to return to the 7-star oceanic sacred world, or his hometown cosmos. There are 3 cosmos gods and 1 Lord Lo Chung in the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. Dongbo Shuang thought, "To me it is not bad." Of the 3 cosmos gods in the Eastern Unicorn sacred world, there was one who had a weaker relationship with Dongbo Shuang, and that was the teacher of Gu Qian Luo, Ancestor Bone. There was one who was closer to Dongbo Shuang, and was even stronger than Ancestor Bone. He was also the creator of the Void Walker system, Void Primogenitor. Void Primogenitor resided in the Void God Palace of the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. According to hearsay, there were 9 million void creatures existing in the Void God Palace, with more than 10,000 void gods. They were all loyal to Void Primogenitor. The Void God Palace was a relatively benevolent superpower that abhorred evil. None of the void creatures that could enter were evil. Otherwise, Void Primogenitor would kill them. Like Dongbo Shuang, who obtained the Voidwalker inheritance, there was a temperament trial too. Saber Emperor, Ancestor Bone, Void Primogenitor and Lord Locheng. Dongbo Shuang admired this Lord Locheng the most. That was because the first 3 were all ultimate existences. As for Lord Locheng, he was the only one who could fight against a cosmos god at the primal chaos realm in the 5 great sacred worlds, and the primal chaos void. Even in the history of the world, there were countless experts who could fight against cosmos gods at the primal chaos realm. Yes, the cosmos god realm was the final realm. The moment one crossed this step, his strength would undergo a heaven-shaking transformation. According to logic, even the most talented primal chaos existences could not fight against cosmos gods. This had almost become an iron law. But the Lord Locheng had broken this iron law. Lord Locheng was a relatively mysterious cultivator. Even though he was a primal chaos existence, he had once fought against Ancestor Bone to the point of forcing him to escape in a miserable state. Furthermore, when he fought with Void Primogenitor, he was able to suppress Void Primogenitor. One had to know that Void Primogenitor was an existence who created the 60th level of the Traveler's hidden secret. Even Forefather Tianyu was slightly weaker than him by a level, yet Lord Locheng could suppress Void Primogenitor. Clearly, he could similarly suppress Forefather Tianyu at the Primal Chaos realm. This was the only existence who was not a cosmos god, yet had the status of a cosmos god. Thus, the Eastern Unicorn sacred world seemed to have 3 final realm existences, but Lord Locheng could be considered one of them. Even the other final realm existences in the 5 great sacred worlds respected this Lord Locheng. According to the information provided by Voidwalker Guqi, Lord Locheng's realm was extremely high, but he seemed to have violated some sort of taboo, causing him to be unable to break through to the cosmos god realm forever. Dongbo Shuang understood his position. He was confident in his heart. He asked, "Do you know how many primal chaos great lands these void creatures have occupied?" The male with messy black hair answered, "I've heard it from the monarch. The monarch is the only void god in our primal chaos great land, and he is protecting us. The monarch frequently goes out to visit his friends, and has a good relationship with the void gods in the surrounding primal chaos great lands." That day, the monarch received news from a good friend, saying that more than 200 primal chaos great lands have been occupied by the void creatures. That good friend of his has currently escaped into the primal chaos void, and is currently fleeing in a sorry state. The monarch asked him to hurry up and escape. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly as he heard that. This monarch's luck was not bad. He actually received a message from a good friend. One had to know that it was extremely difficult to transmit a message through the primal chaos void. The further the distance, the harder it would be. He had even specially constructed complex arrays, and consumed a huge amount of energy just to transmit a message. Just like how he had left his hometown, he could no longer contact his hometown cosmos. This monarch should be a good friend of his, and was not too far away from him. That was why he could transmit a message. When the monarch received the news, he knew that something was amiss. He originally wanted to bring the group of transcending powerful existences and escape. But the powerful existences were still gathering when the void creatures arrived. The male with messy black hair shook his head. At that time, a large group of void creatures came, and there were quite a few void gods among them. My clan's monarch was soon surrounded and devoured. Some of those void creatures left, and some chose to occupy this place for a long period of time. From then on we became their slaves and their food. Those who could not endure it have long died. Only those of us who are struggling at death's door, and still yearn for hope to descend, are able to survive until now. The male with messy black hair laughed bitterly. Every once in a while, they would force us to refine an avatar for them to devour. They have treated us as an endless supply of food. If not for the strand of hope, I might not have been able to hold on any longer. Dongbo Shuang nodded. To turn countless living beings on a primal chaos great land into food, one could see from this that the cosmos was much safer. It forbade void gods from entering, and even the operating laws of the cosmos would repel outsiders. Only a cosmos like the Devil Mountain Cosmos, with a protector, dared to be tolerant towards outsiders. The cultivator cosmos was relatively tolerant too, because there was a wild black dog protecting them in the dark. Do you know the names of the surrounding primal chaos great lands? Dongbo Shuang asked. I know a part of it. The male with messy black hair reported another 20 over names. Dongbo Shuang compared them with his own void map. That's right, it was indeed this region. Rest assured, I can guarantee that all of you will definitely be saved. It's just that all of you might have to endure for a period. Dongbo Shuang said. As long as we can be saved, we can wait. The male with messy black hair nodded. Deep within a mountain range on this primal chaos great land, there was a bamboo house. Dongbo Shuang was temporarily staying here. He brought along a life-saving talisman to conceal his aura, so as to prevent the void creatures from discovering him. This is my first time using the communication talisman. Dongbo Shuang flipped his hand, taking out a unique translucent triangular item. This was the communication talisman of a disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Being a golden-robed disciple, this communication talisman of his was much more precious. Practically anywhere in the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void, one could use this communication talisman to send news back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. For instance, asking for help. Even though he could not return to the Great Void Heaven Temple temporarily, Dongbo Shuang would not ask for help. After all, being a golden-robed disciple, he had taken the initiative to come out and take risks. He did not encounter any danger, yet he wanted to ask for help to bring him back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. That would be a joke. Wang. Dongbo Shuang activated the communication talisman, sending a message directly back to the Great Void Heaven Temple. The triangular communication talisman surged with energy, and a terrifying might brewed within it. Following that, a large amount of energy was consumed, and the communication talisman resonated with the distant Great Void Heaven Temple, sending the message over. 60% of the energy has been consumed, Dongbo Shuang exclaimed inwardly. To replenish the energy of the communication talisman, with my current strength, I'm afraid I'll need more than a month. Now that there was only 40% of the energy left, he would not be able to contact the Great Void Heaven Temple for a short period of time. Great Void Heaven Temple. This was a special space with many floating mountain peaks. Many of the mountain peaks had caves and palaces, and right in the center was the largest floating continent. On it was a chain of palaces, and there was a dazzling palace that illuminated the entire space. This was the Great Void Heaven Temple, famous across the 5 great sacred worlds. One had to know that the number of cosmos gods in a sacred world could be counted with one's fingers, and the Great Void Heaven Temple had 2 cosmos gods protecting it. One could see how stable its status was and how famous it was. Many figures were flying. The Great Void territory is under the jurisdiction of my Great Void Heaven Temple. They actually dared to create chaos in our territory, and even sacrificed the lives of 15 primal chaos great lands to the ancestor mother. This is the Great Void territory. Even the true body of the ancestor mother doesn't dare to be arrogant in our territory. Hurry up and send Chun One's disciple over to capture them alive, and send them into the Devil Refinement Prison. Those who can't be captured alive should be killed. The leading figure was wearing a luxurious black robe. His blood-colored hair was fluttering, and his eyes were filled with a terrifying coldness. Yes, Hall Master. A girl behind him respectfully acknowledged. This Hall Master in front of her was the famous Punishment Hall Master, Ancestor Devil. According to the legends, Ancestor Devil came from the same cosmos as the Sword Master. But Ancestor Devil believed in the survival of the fittest. After the Great Void Heaven Temple was subjected to the rules of the Heaven Palace, Lake Heart Island Sword Master took the initiative to arrange for Ancestor Devil to take on the position of Punishment Hall Master. At that moment, the cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple became much more obedient. Not many dared to casually challenge the rules of the Great Void Heaven Temple. What is happening? Ancestor Devil looked afar. There was a huge crystal wall in front of which many cultivators were discussing. It was a huge commotion. There is actually a new golden-robed disciple. Who would have thought that there is another golden-robed disciple outside of the 10 great golden-robed disciples? This is someone who passed through the trials created by the old ancestor. Starting cosmos? This cosmos, Sword Master and Ancestor Devil should be from this cosmos, right? Those cultivators were discussing. The 10 great golden-robed disciples. They were all monsters who could fight against those of a higher realm. The news of a new golden-robed disciple appearing had spread rapidly. Much less that he came from the same cosmos as Lake Heart Island Sword Master and Ancestor Devil. Amen. Ancestor Devil heard the news too. He took a step and arrived in front of the crystal wall. When the surrounding cultivators saw Ancestor Devil, they were so frightened that they retreated to the side respectfully. Ancestor Devil might have cultivated for a short period, but he had long stepped into the primal chaos realm. He was a big shot within the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, his methods were ruthless. He was also the Punishment Hall Master, causing the cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple to fear him. Ancestor Devil looked up. There were many missions appearing on the crystal wall, of which the third message at the top was what he wanted to see. These missions were arranged according to their importance in time. There are at least 200 primal chaos continents in the Chuntai Great Land. All of them have been occupied by void creatures, and they are wantonly consuming cultivators as food. This mission has already been confirmed by the Inquisitive Sky Hall. These void creatures can be killed, and those who accept the mission will receive detailed information. This mission is issued by the Golden Robe Disciple starting Cosmos, Dongbo Shuang. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.